Another fantastically epic Korean fantasy film that's thrilling from beginning to end. Fighting evil with evil the whole time, it's incredibly satisfying. Let's watch it in one go. The Judge from Hell. How to punish those in the human world. This woman is a stern judge by day, but transforms into a devil from hell at night, specifically punishing criminals who have been acquitted. A series of bizarre murders caught the attention of a young police officer. He began to suspect the beautiful judge in court, but the young officer didn't know that the killer he was facing was not human.
난 악마예요. 보다시피 지금은 강빈나라는 인간의 몸을 빌려서 살.
Not long ago, this ordinary woman named Jeong Kwang-na was stabbed to death by a masked man in the park. After her death, her soul left her body, and, guided by the red spider lilies, walked towards the gate of the afterlife. A strange gate opened before her. She should have gone to the false hell, but a mistake in the sinner classification system sent her to murderer's hell. It's filled with people who committed crimes but never repented, humans who will never receive forgiveness. She was to be thrown into Xin Nenzagu to receive the harshest punishment. Jeong Kwang-na's placement here was a complete mistake. But Judge Zhu, the administrator of the 6th District's murderous hell, is a very capricious worker. Ironically, she's more likely to die from a random assassination attempt. But Judge Zhu dislikes trouble and refuses to investigate. She insists on throwing Kwang-na into Xin Nenzagu Valley as well, making her serve a 50,000-year sentence to come to her senses. Her assistant, Hugh Lake, naturally refuses to cooperate. This woman's name isn't on the list. How can you just send someone to Xin Nenzagu Valley? Zhu Jie snatched the seal upon hearing this. Without a word, she sent Kwang-na away. However, this was noticed by the person in charge of Hell's delay, Bali. He immediately came to demand an explanation. Zhu Jie said that the prisoners sent to her place naturally have to be thrown into Xin Nenzagu Valley, whose system is responsible for arresting the wrong person. Bali ignored Zhu Jie's excuses to punish her willful actions. He sentenced Zhu Jie to a year in the human world. She must apprehend 10 criminals who have committed murder and show no remorse. Then, she must take their lives and send them to hell. Her assistant, Valet, will also be punished. If they fail to complete the task, both will be annihilated. And so, the hellish demon, Zhu Jie, entered Kong Guanna's body. Coincidentally, this human is a judge in the mortal world. So Zhu Jie is also a specialist in her field. She hasn't chosen the wrong job. The first case of today's court session is a bit special. The defendant is Han Daowon, a guard in the Major Crimes Unit 2 of Luping Police Station. He recently received a trial for dereliction of duty and violent acts. This time, he is being accused of violent law enforcement. But Han Daowon insisted on his innocence, so he didn't even hire a lawyer. A few days ago, Daewon was pursuing a suspect who assaulted citizens and then fled. Because the suspect had a knife, Daewon disarmed him. After the suspect's arrest, he was given a light fine and released on the spot. And he even turned the tables. The appeal claims excessive force by the police injured his wrist.
들어눕기만 해도 끊어준다는 정치 이주진다.
The prosecutor played the victim card, saying the plaintiff's injured hand prevented him from even eating. The police shouldn't have used excessive force. Ms. Zhu became impatient upon hearing this. The police aren't invincible either. When faced with a knife-wielding suspect, should they have been gentle? If this is considered excessive force, then what you're doing is excessive accusation. It's such a trivial matter, yet it's ended up in court. Don't think I don't know that your father-in-law is college classmates with the defendant's mother. Ms. Zhu told Duo Wen to hurry up and make his final statement. She's eager to get off work. Actually, Duo Wen just needs to verbally apologize and it'll be over. I never expected this kid to remain unyielding until the very end. Aren't you reflecting on your actions?
잘못한 게 없어서 반성할 거.
Officer Zhu impartially ruled in Duo-wen's favor, finding him not guilty. It was the young police officer's first time encountering such a just judge. He specifically chased after Officer Zhu to apologize. Unexpectedly, she took everything off her person and stuffed it all into Duo-wen's hands. She asked him to deliver it to the 18th Criminal Investigation Unit on the 5th floor. Furthermore, Officer Zhu told Duo-wen not to overthink it. She can't empathize with anyone's case. She just deals with the facts.
내가 왜 형사재판부 판사라는 직업을 좋아하는지 알아요? 나쁜 놈들을
Although Duo-wen didn't understand, he still gave Zhu Jie a business card, telling her to contact him if she encountered any trouble. Then Duo-wen, wearing his judge's robe, went to the 5th floor and entered the 18th Criminal Division. The clerk with the bowl cut, Hu Man Dao. It's basically Hell's little assistant, Hu La Ku. Meanwhile, Zhu Jie arrives at a certain church. She's a formally employed, evil judge. Although she's a little uncomfortable, she isn't afraid of the church. At this time, a woman is crying and praying. Her name is Che Zhang. She's a woman who is beaten and kicked by her boyfriend every day, and has even received death threats, a poor little thing. Originally, Senior Zhu was supposed to handle Min Zhang's case, but the other party suddenly decided not to submit the disciplinary agreement. Senior Zhu found it strange, so she came to investigate. But Zhang wouldn't say much. She could only persistently follow her. Unexpectedly, Zhang called the patrol officers. Senior Zhu had to explain that she was a prosecutor. But her civil servant ID wasn't with her. My bag also contains a delusion diagnosis. This is a bit embarrassing to talk about. When Zhu Jie first woke up from Guang Na's body, she wasn't very used to human life. She spent all day in the hospital talking about demons in hell. As a result, the doctors diagnosed her with delusional disorder. Now, even the patrol officer won't believe she's a judge. He even took Zhu Jia back to the Seoul Road Peak Police Station. That's Duo Wen's workplace. I didn't expect them to meet twice in just one day. Hearing that Sister Zhu was working so hard to make a fair judgment, even after work, investigating so diligently, Duo Wen's respect soared. She admired this unconventional judge even more. The next day, Min Zhang's case went to court. Duo Wen specifically went to the courthouse to observe. Defendant Wen Qingjun assaulted his then-girlfriend, the victim, 3 times between October and December 2023. He assaulted the victim, who was his girlfriend at the time, 3 times. And after the victim broke up with him, he threatened her. The defendant's lawyer admitted to the assault, but denied the threat. This can be confirmed through the victim's submitted non-prosecution agreement. The prosecutor pointed out that the victim's 404. It was because she feared retaliation from the perpetrator that she gave up seeking justice. However, hearsay is not evidence. This could only be considered the prosecution's unilateral speculation. The prosecutor could only submit photos of the victim's brutal assault. Those wounds were truly horrifying. Seeing this, Moon Jong-jun squeezed out a few crocodile tears, saying he was just momentarily angry. I unconsciously started. As for those words, it's better to die together than to break up. He was just trying to keep Min Jong. It wasn't a death threat. Officer Ju almost threw up hearing that. Actually, according to Article 264 of the Criminal Code, the prosecution only sought a 1-year prison sentence for the defendant. But Moon Jong-jun pulled out all the stops to get acquitted.
민정이를 정말 사랑했다고 말하고 싶습니다.
This Wen Qingjun is a real Oscar winner. He's acting like a romantic hero right now. But as soon as he left the courthouse, he showed his disdain for Min Jong's parents. Duo Wen noticed this and immediately contacted Zhu Jie. If Wen Qingjun is released, he'll definitely cause more trouble. He might even hurt Zhang again. Little did she know, her words were exactly what Zhu Jie wanted to hear. If Wen Qingjun escapes trial and kills someone, then she could kill Wen and send him to hell. Wouldn't that be wonderful? But Zhu Jie is a judge after all. She decided to meet Min Jong's parents first, to hear the victim's story firsthand. Min Jong submitted a non-prosecution agreement. She was truly afraid of retaliation from Wen Jong-jun, because even if he were given the maximum sentence, it's only a few years and then she'll be out. Min Jong doesn't want to live in fear. She doesn't want to spend her life hiding and cowering in fear. A barely perceptible smile plays on the lips of the devil, Zhu Jie. In other words, Moon Jong-jun will definitely retaliate against the victims. No matter how you look at it, he fits Bale's requirements. Zhu Jie runs to the restroom. She applies mint lip balm under her eyes. I forced myself to shed a few tears. Then I continued discussing the case with Longjing's parents. Afterwards, Duo Wen learned that the 3 of them had talked for 5 hours. Sister Zhu couldn't help but cry. The young police officer was deeply moved. He probably already considered the devil an angel. On the other hand, the little assistant in hell was investigating unsolved serial murder cases. It's too difficult to find 10 murderers who escaped within a year. If I could find one, a serial killer who murdered 10 people, and then have Zhu Jie eliminate him, I could complete Bali's task in one go. But Zhu Jie has already formulated a plan targeting Wen Qingjun. The final judgment day is coming soon. Zhu Jie is taking the opposite approach, considering the victim's request for leniency, and the defendant's admission and promise to correct his mistakes. The court has decided to show leniency. Therefore, Moon Jong-jun is sentenced to a fine of 3 million Korean won. Upon hearing this, Min Jong's parents' faces changed drastically. Duwon's eyes also reddened with anger. He stopped Ms. Ju, wanting to understand the situation. However, she remained calm and composed. The victims don't want to press charges against the perpetrator. What else can the law do? The judge isn't a therapist. Everything must be decided according to the law. After saying this, Zhu Jie drove away. Duo Wen could only go and warn the released Wen Qingjun. Don't go near Taejang ever again. The law won't forgive you a second time. Lang Jiang locked herself in her rented apartment and refused to see anyone. Duo Wen left behind a watch with an emergency alarm button, hoping it could help her. And all Zhu Jie could do was wait. Wait for Wen Qingjun to slip up. During this time, whenever Duo Wen had free time, he would go to Zhang's apartment building. He was incredibly persistent, come what may. 2 weeks had passed in the blink of an eye. The team leader couldn't stand it anymore. He asked Duo Wen to reduce the frequency of his visits. After all, the department had other cases to investigate. On the other hand, Jin gradually lowered her guard. She wanted to move back home to live with her parents. Zhu Jie knew the criminal wouldn't remain hidden for too long. She took out a mirror. Write down Moon Jong-jun's name. Sure enough, we see him buying the murder weapon. The footage of Moon Jong-jun loitering outside Min Jong's door that night. He falsely claimed to be a police officer, delivering something for Officer Han Da-won. Eun Jong told him to leave it at the door. After the outside sounds disappeared, she cautiously opened the door through the security chain. Moon Jong-jun forcefully threw open the door. Without a word, he threw away Eun Jong's watch. He used all his strength to brutally beat a woman. Rang Jong could only kneel and beg for mercy. Moon Jong-jun warned her. If she dared to call the police or tell her parents, he would kill her parents. Heartbroken and despairing, Rang Jong decided to die. Sister Zhu smiled contentedly at the scene. Now it was her turn to work. Sister Zhu intercepted Wen Qingjun as he was leaving the apartment. She drew her blade of judgment. Her pupils gleamed with a fiery light. But before she could act, Duo-Wen arrived at the scene in a hurry, driving his car. Sister Zhu could only put away her weapon. Duo-Wen was about to hit someone again. Zhu Jie grabbed his hand. If you continue this abuse of power and violence, you'll lose your job. Duo-Wen tried to pull away, but he found Zhu Jie's grip surprisingly strong. Soon, fellow police officers arrived at the scene. They took Wen Qingjun back to the station for questioning. Zhu Jie followed Duo-Wen to examine the crime scene. She can see what happened then through the scene traces. She can see what happened at the scene from the evidence. Zhu Jie told Duo-Wen not to misunderstand the point. She merely made a judgment according to the law. If you want to blame someone, blame the country's laws. And even if Wen Jun is sentenced to a year in prison, do you think he'll behave himself after he gets out? Duo-Wen and Zhu Jie didn't see eye to eye. We turned back to the police station to interrogate Moon Jong-jun. If Du-won hadn't arrived at the scene in time, Min Jong might have hanged herself. Moon Jong-jun was relieved to know that Jong was still alive. He even said, if she died, I wouldn't be able to live either. And he said that it's normal for couples to argue during their relationship. She voluntarily opened the door and let me in. Is it reasonable for you police to interfere in a couple's argument? Because the arrest warrant hasn't been approved yet. The police station can only release Wen Qingjun for now. But this time, they won't let this bastard go. Duo-Wen plans to sleep directly under Wen Qingjun's building. Aunt Ju found out that Jin is still alive. But that old lady is a master at making a fuss. Who says that still breathing means alive? Jin's mental state is a complete mess. I don't have the hope or courage to live on. What's the difference between me and a dead person?
그래도 저도 그 문정준이 직접 죽인 게 아니.
정신적 살인.
The assistant said, isn't the police going to apply for detention? So, can't we intervene this time? Zhu Jie laughed at the assistant's naivete. When Qingjun agreed to cooperate with the police investigation, he showed no intention of escaping at all. The police couldn't get the detention warrant. This country's laws are just so speechless. As a result, Du-won can only watch over the victim's family every day. That day, he had just entered the elevator. When Moon Jong-jun appeared from the hallway, he covered the peephole and the camera, preparing to knock on the door. But his phone in his pocket suddenly vibrated. Moon Jong-jun glanced at the contents and left. The next day, Du-won visited Jong's family. She heard the ringing and discovered the lens was blurred. This reminded Min Jong of what happened that night. She had an immediate stress response. She said the person outside must be Moon Jong-jun. He had also lied that day, claiming to be a police officer. Min Jong's father watched his distraught daughter. He suddenly realized that calling the police wouldn't help. As long as Moon Jong-jun is still alive, his daughter couldn't find peace. Min's father made his wife and daughter hide in the bedroom. He himself grabbed a kitchen knife and rushed out. Luckily, Duo-Wen was quick and agile. He disarmed Lang's father in time. A major disaster was averted. The whole family was almost driven mad. Just then, Duo-Wen received a phone call. They say Wen Qingjun is dead. Let's go back 12 hours. The text message Wen Qingjun received that day was from Jin. She asked him to meet at Huangtian Cave, building 323, apartment 21. They had something to settle face to face. At midnight, Wen Qingjun arrived at the appointed place. Huangtian Cave is slated for demolition. The residents had already moved out. Wen Qingjun entered 323-21. This was an abandoned detached villa. He heard the sound of high heels coming from upstairs. He impatiently pulled out a hammer. But the one who came downstairs was actually the judge. Wen Qingjun couldn't figure out what was happening. He clearly heard Jin's voice. The next second, his assistant, his voice altered, walked out. I asked Zhu Jie to leave work early. From now on, this is a true judgment. Zhu Jie revealed her weapon. Wen Qingjun sensed danger and turned to run away. But the surrounding scene drastically changed. He found himself in a restaurant. Couples on dates were all around him. Zhu Jie wanted Wen Qingjun to experience everything Min Jiang went through. These are the rules of hell. Cut to Wen Qingjun and Zhu Jie becoming a couple. But the latter is moody. She loses her temper at the slightest inconvenience, and she constantly threatens suicide. If Wen Qingjun dares to mention breaking up, he'll be beaten up by Zhu Jie. Even if he locks the door, hides in the bathroom, and calls the police, Sister Zhu would also break down the door and beat him up first. With great difficulty, they waited for the police to arrest this female lunatic. Wen Qingjun quickly moved house. But the court released Sister Zhu early. She came looking for him again, like a ghost. Wen Qingjun instinctively wanted to call the police, but Sister Zhu threatened him, saying, if I get out of prison, I will definitely kill you. Sister Zhu picked up a hammer and smashed Wen Qingjun's leg. Afterwards, she frantically apologized. She swore she would never do it again. She truly understood the essence of domestic abuse. Wen Qingjun was mentally broken by the torture. He would tremble at the sound of Sister Zhu's voice. Finally, he chose to end his own life. In a second, he returned to reality. Sister Zhu, I'd feel disgusted acting as a couple with you, okay? But this is a necessary procedure for the hellish judgment. Only by making those unrepentant criminals feel the pain experienced by the victims, with interest, can the hellish judge take action. Unexpectedly, Wen Qingjun, with his wicked heart unchanged, actually attempted a sneak attack. He probably saw that Sister Zhu is a woman, so I thought there was a chance to kill him. Little did I know, this human shell, however weak it may seem, inside held a demon with supernatural powers. Zhu Jie, like a predator enjoying the hunt, played with her prey at will. When Qing Jun was like a flea in her hands, quickly beaten to the ground by Zhu Jie. He could only kneel and beg for mercy, admitting to all his crimes. He said he deserved 1,000 deaths. Zhu Jie drew her blade of judgment and plunged it into Wen Qingjuan's body. Then she stamped him, sending him to hell. Thus, she had dispatched her first criminal. The scene shifts back to the present timeline. Duo Wen immediately went to the crime scene. Wen Qingjuan's death was extremely gruesome. He was beaten black and blue. There's a brand on his forehead. It says Henenzi Valley in ancient Greek. But the crime scene was very clean. Not even a trace of blood. Because Sister Zhu called the hell cleaning crew to clean up afterwards. Whether it's fingerprints, blood, hair, or the scene damaged by the fight, it can be restored to its original state in the blink of an eye. And Zhu Jie's notoriety in hell. The cleaning crew are afraid of offending her. They're all working with utmost care. They're doing the cleanup to perfection. As for throwing the bodies out the front door, that's Zhu Jie's sick hobby. She wants everyone to see the consequences of doing bad things. Meanwhile, Wen Qingjuan's autopsy report is also out. Although he did suffer multiple fractures, the key cause of death was excessive bleeding after being stabbed. The security camera footage in front of Jun's house before the incident shows Wen Qingjun talking on the phone with someone. The police checked his text messages and call logs from that time, and found that the contact used a disposable phone. And the crime scene was in a demolition area, so there were no security cameras. This case is extremely difficult. The only clue is the mark on the victim's head. And Henan Valley is hell in the Bible. After Moon Jongjun's death, Min Zhong's life finally returned to normal. She specifically went to the police station to thank Du-won. She even said that a few days ago at the church, she ran into Judge Kong Guangna. Min Zhong was talking to the chief judge at the time. She felt that being happy about Moon Jongjun's death was a terrible thing. It was a truly ugly thing. But the judge told her not to feel guilty. Those words comforted me more than any others. At the same time, Zhu Zhang was reviewing files. She was trying to pick her next suitable candidate. Then the chief suddenly called her for a talk. Sister Zhu was just discharged from the hospital before, and her health wasn't good. So the director endured it and didn't mention it. But recently, with that Wen Qingjun case, how could they just let him off with a 3 million won fine? And Sister Zhu, as a civil servant, wears heavy makeup and flashy clothes all day long.
这些问题都要赶紧改掉。
저 지금 완전 풀리게 입었는데.
The director gritted his teeth and thought to himself, if it weren't for the council member, I'll sooner or later exile you to the countryside. It seems the original Guangna had a powerful backer. This backer is Zhang Jieil, a government council member. Guangna had a marriage contract with his eldest son. But the situation seems to be more complicated than that. What role will council member Zhang's family ultimately play? We need to continue watching. Meanwhile, Zhu Jie and her assistant return to Wangjin apartment. This is the only building here that hasn't been demolished. Because Zhu Jie spent all her salary on designer brands. She can only afford to rent this old, dilapidated place. And her landlord is a devout Christian. Every time she goes to her house for a residence meeting, Zhu Jie has to wear sunglasses to hide her crucifix. Actually, she could choose not to attend. But everyone's pastries are just too delicious. The landlord called this meeting to get everyone to sign a petition against the demolition. She wants to save her building. Any tenant who signs will get half off their rent and no management fees. Zhu Jie, short on cash, immediately signs to quickly escape her current predicament. Zhu Jie plans to use Detective Han Du-won. Find 9 criminals who meet the requirements as soon as possible. After all, besides the court, it's the police who have contact with the most criminals. Zhu Jie and the people at the police station lied, saying she was Duo Wen's girlfriend. She asked about the location of the young police officer.
그럼 거짓말을 도대체 왜 하는 겁니까?
거짓말한 게 문제면
Duo Wen couldn't stand her persistent pursuit. He could only agree to sit down and chat. Zhu Jie saw that the fish was hooked. I effortlessly got Duo Wen drunk. Then I asked him, are there any unarrested criminals left in the police station? Unexpectedly, Duo Wen confessed to killing 3 people, and he showed no remorse. Zhu Jie was overjoyed at the news. But before I could ask for more details, Duo Wen fell asleep. Tears still stained his face. It seems he has some unspeakable secret. Duo Wen woke up the next day with a splitting headache. He found that Zhu Jie hadn't left yet. He was about to approach her, but she suddenly stabbed him. However, as the male lead, Duo Wen definitely won't get killed off in the second episode. The time is 1999, inside the Inzhou cave. Duo Wen held 2 small red flowers, preparing to give them to his mother. But as soon as he entered the house, he saw his mother lying in a pool of blood. And the murderer was still in his house, hadn't left yet. Duo Wen's statement about having killed someone should be related to this painful memory. In short, he is innocent. Zhu Jie's misjudgment brought the person in charge, Bali. Originally, she only needed to find 10 criminals. Now it's 7 times as many, she has to find 20. After Ball finished speaking, he left LY, and Duo Wen immediately resurrected. But what happened before clearly exceeded his understanding. Duo Wen immediately arrested him and sent him back to the police station. He claimed that he was stabbed 7 times by Zhu Jia with a knife, but he didn't even have a scratch on him. And he also smelled strongly of alcohol. The police didn't believe Duo Wen at all. But they were also a little curious. How could Zhu Jia have been handcuffed so obediently?
그게 다원 씨가 이런 걸 좋아하는 거.
My colleagues were filled with righteous indignation when they heard this. Although some people like handcuffs and dog collars. The moment you force someone to wear them. You're a pervert, a pervert. Afterwards, Zhu Jia went to talk to her assistant. How can I gather 20 criminals within a year? Little did I know, the employee at the pork cutlet shop actually recognized her as someone from hell. This employee's name is Gumori. She's the unlucky one who sent Kong Guangna to the wrong place. Sometimes, people's servility is truly terrifying. Gumori knelt down before the queen with a thud. She almost shouted, "Long live the idol." 10,000 years. She was ashamed of having implicated Zhu Jia, causing her to suffer in the mortal realm. Therefore, she willingly assisted the other party in completing the task. After Zhu Jia left, she went to see Duo Wen. She explained her origins and showed off her magical abilities a little. And warned Duo Wen to stop there. Don't spread the word about resurrection anymore. Anyway, no one would believe you. Little did she know, this remark hit Duo Wen's weak point. After my mother's accident, Duo Wen was too young. Each time he went to the police station for questioning, his statements were inconsistent. The officers simply didn't believe him. But now Duo Wen has grown up. And he will absolutely not give up. The scene shifts to inside an office building. What kind of person names their company tile? Zhang Zijia's eldest son is reading a comic book. I didn't expect to see Kong Guangna's signature. Why would she go live in Wangchun Apartments? You know, Tayek's latest development project. Is just missing that holdout building. Cut back to the police station. The results of the examination of Moon Jongjun's forehead scar are in. It looks like it was caused by branding with iron over 200 degrees Celsius. A direct burn. And this soldering iron must have been custom made. So the police are going to inquire with relevant professionals. Like blacksmiths, for example. Late that night, a family of 3 was heading home. The father was dead drunk in the back seat. The mother, who was driving, was about to open the sunroof to air the car out. But the car lost control and plunged off the road. The water was about to come up to their waists. The sober father told his wife and son to climb out of the sunroof first. He himself was trapped by the seat and couldn't escape. For her son's safety, the mother could only muster her strength and swim to shore. Then she went back to save her husband. But by then, the car had already sunk. And the doors wouldn't open because of a malfunction. The woman surfaced before her oxygen ran out. She hurried back to shore to ask passersby for help. Unfortunately, people were cold and uncaring. No one offered assistance. In the end, her husband, Hyun-soo, died tragically. His mother went crazy at the funeral. She claimed that her daughter-in-law, Jaeyoung, had killed her son. She also wanted to take away her grandson, Jiho. Soon, the matter went to court. The grandmother, without the consent of the legal guardian, Pae Seong, took her grandson, Jihao, directly from his home. And has yet to return him. The grandmother believes that a grandmother raising her grandson is only natural. And that this cannot be considered a crime. Therefore, she disregarded court decorum and created a disturbance. Even claiming that the judge and prosecutor are in cahoots.
법정 모욕죄로 처벌받고 싶어요?
Ms. Zhu quickly announced the end of the defendant's questioning. Get her out of here quickly. But then, her mother-in-law suddenly grabbed Seong's hair. She questioned her about whether she had taken the insurance money after Xianxiu's death. She also mentioned that Seong's ex-husband had also suddenly died. Zhu Jie realized something was up. This woman might be a habitual killer and insurance fraudster. Zhu Jie couldn't wait to go out and investigate. But then she was bothered by Duo Wen again. Zhu Jie shook him off. She went to the school to talk to Xia Yong, who was teaching a class. This woman behaved very kindly, showing no resentment towards her mother-in-law at all. Furthermore, Jihao wasn't Xia Yong's biological son. He was just a student she had previously taught. His biological mother passed away when Jihao was 2 years old. As his teacher, Xia Yong took extra care of him. It was precisely because of this that I fell in love with and married Hyun-soo. Who knew that 6 months into our marriage, an accident would happen? The reason why Ji-young raised Ji-ho, who wasn't his biological child, was because his mother-in-law abandoned Hyun-soo when he was 5 years old, and ran away from home. Then, after 30 years, she suddenly reappeared, and occasionally asked Hyun-soo for money. My mother-in-law kept asking for Ji-ho's death insurance payout. So Ji-young couldn't entrust her child to such a person. After saying that, she burst into tears. After Zhu Jie finished inquiring, she wanted to leave. Then Duo Wen, very familiarly, squeezed into the car. He said he had investigated Pae Seong. He learned that her first husband suddenly went blind. He fell to his death on a mountain. Seong inherited his apartment. Then I received 500 million won in insurance money. And Hyun-soo, who recently passed away, left a total of 3 billion won in death insurance. Jaeyoung and her son Ji-ho will each receive 1.8 billion and 1.2 billion won, respectively. Dawn sent Ju Jae back to her apartment and left. To get rid of this clingy guy. Ju Jae planned to leave at 5 a.m. the next day. Little did I know, Han Do-won was already waiting outside. He actually drove the RV right over. He'd been waiting downstairs since last night. Luckily, Ju Jie quickly came around. She used Do-won as a free driver. Soon, the two arrived at the old woman's shop. This old woman, defying the court, refused to hand over the child. She had actually hidden Ji-ho in the closet. Sister Ju said, "I'm not interested in children. I just want to ask, why you think Seong murdered her husband for insurance money? Do you have any evidence?" The grandmother claimed that at Hyun-soo's funeral, she saw Seong getting intimate with a man. And 3 days after the funeral, the grandmother picked up her grandson from school. I saw trash everywhere. She asked Ji-hao, and he knew. Seong only ordered fried chicken for the child. Then he didn't come home for 2 whole days. The grandmother asked to pack up and take her grandson away. Ju Jae is not human, she's incapable of empathy. What the old lady said isn't evidence at all. Without a word, she prepared to leave. Kudwa 1, a criminal police officer, wanted to learn more. He simply pulled out a cross to scare Ju Jae. Then, Tong Ji-hao went with his aunt to buy snacks. Ju Jae chatted with the child. Ji-hao even showed her his picture book. And Ju Jae quickly glimpsed Seong's true face from the picture. It turned out that before the car accident, Ji-hao saw his stepmother applying adhesive to the rear seat seatbelt. After she escaped to the shore, she deliberately closed the skylight. Because Ji-ho is just a child. Ji-young didn't hide it from him at all. She even threatened Ji-ho, saying that if he dared to say anything, she would kill him too. Do-won was angry. But he knew that a child's testimony alone wouldn't be enough for a conviction.
그 아이가 조사를 받을 때마다 진술을 번복한다면 과연 그 말을 누가 믿어줄까요?
내가
Juja's words stirred Do-won again. If he had encountered such a judge back then, would he have been able to catch the murderer of his mother? At the retrial, of course, Ms. Ju wasn't convicted of killing her mother-in-law. Instead, she received probation, meaning that for the next 2 years, as long as she doesn't commit any crimes, she won't be punished for this incident. This was the lightest sentence the judge could give. Of course, the mother-in-law, Se-young, and we still need to discuss custody. But Pae Se-young is just too good at acting. She was so pitiful in front of the police. But secretly, she's preparing to strike back at the grandmother and grandson. As for Duo 1, after these few days of getting along, he's decided to give up on investigating whether Zhu Jia is a devil or not. Although he was mistakenly killed by her once, he doesn't dislike this shrewd judge. Zhu Jia finally escaped the entanglement, but felt an inexplicable sense of loss. She had stayed in the human world for too long, picking up human flaws. Zhu Jia suppressed her emotions and wrote Se-young's name on the mirror, wanting to see what that woman was doing. Se-young was bringing the police to someone's door. Of course, Grandma refused to let him go. She said my grandson saw her commit a crime, so the police will investigate Se-young for child abuse and demand an investigation. I beg you, don't give my grandson to a murderer. Se-young turned around, revealing a disdainful smile. She would absolutely not give up so easily. Ji-hao, who had just finished school that day. On the road, he met an elderly woman carrying luggage. He politely offered to help her. The elderly woman gave the child a bottle of red ginseng juice. She said it was a drink for the elderly. She said if you drink it around 10 o'clock at night, your feet won't hurt and you'll sleep soundly. Ji-hao immediately decided to take it back to his grandmother. Little did he know, he had barely left. Se-young's car was parked right in front of the old woman. He gave her a sum of money for her trouble. Se-young put sleeping pills in that bottle of drink. That evening, Ji-hao, worried about his grandmother's leg pain, quickly handed her the bottle of drink. The old woman fell unconscious after drinking it. Se-young also came and took Ji-hao away. That evening, Duo-won suddenly received a distress call from the young boy. The police immediately dispatched officers to Se-young's home and the old woman's home to check the situation. Luckily, they arrived in time and rushed the elderly person, who had ingested a large amount of sleeping pills, to the emergency room. Duo-won also quickly ran to Se-young's house and knocked on the door, but found no one answering. Fortunately, the patrol officers received information from a witness, who claimed that Ji-hao was near a public phone. Duo-won found Ji-hao there, thoroughly warmed up. He learned that Ji-hao had been brought home by Se-young a short while ago. The latter had filled a bathtub with water, wanting to play a new game with Ji-hao.
수요가 얼마나 우리 잠잘 수 있는지 엄마가 볼 거야. 엄마가 그만하기 전에 절대 올라.
From Ju Jie's side, she saw this scene through the mirror. She immediately had her assistant call Se-young, arranging to meet him at the place where Hyun-soo was killed, and threatened Se-young if he didn't come. I'll give the police the evidence of your murder. Se-young dared not risk it and could only comply. Meanwhile, Ji-hao quickly got dressed and fled the house. He contacted Duo when using a public phone. At this time, Se-young hurried to the beach. But the sunken car was actually driving towards the shore from the water. The headlights blinded Se-young. Ju Jie elegantly drove her car to stop in front of her. The blade of judgment, accompanied by purple light, appeared. Ju Jie slapped Se-young twice, hard on both sides of her face. Because this woman was still being stubborn even as death approached. She refused to admit to killing Shinshio. Ju Jie directly grabbed her and lifted her into the air. She threw Se-young into the car. Let her experience the despair Shinshio felt before her death. The experience of drowning completely panicked Se-young. She had no choice but to confess to murdering her 2 husbands. Her first husband was old and ugly. His only good point was that he was rich. Se-young, in order to get the maximum insurance payout, first gave her husband medicine, then injected him with something that would damage his eyes. Because her first husband loved mountain climbing, so Se-young took the opportunity to push him off the cliff. The feeling of getting something for nothing is so wonderful. Se-young quickly set his sights on Hyun-soo, and he killed him using the same method. Ju Jie asked her why she spared Ji-hao's life. Se-young's histrionic personality took over. She said she wanted to raise Ji-hao properly. Unexpectedly, these words angered Ju Jie. Se-young had to confess. She planned to fake Ji-hao's death by drowning while he was bathing, to get her stepson's insurance money. After obtaining all the confessions and statements, Officer Zhu had her fill of toying with Xiang. After the standard procedure was completed, she then killed Xiang and sealed the case, sending this criminal to Xan Nenzagu. The assistant was also very perceptive and called in the cleaning crew. They cleaned up the crime scene thoroughly. Zhu Jie also specifically packed up the body. She sent it to the street across from the police station. The assistant didn't understand this action. Zhu Jie explained that only this way Officer Han Duowen would suspect me and come looking for me. After all, toying with a young detective, this is the only fun Zhu Jie has left in the human world. But she doesn't know yet that playing with fire can lead to trouble. Zhu Jie didn't wait for Duowen, but instead received an invitation from Counselor Zhang to learn more about her original self. Zhu Jie agreed to have dinner with their family.
귀한 양식을 주셔서 감사하고.
Zhu Jie not only ate a lot, but also asked for a doggy bag.
还要求打
Fortunately, Councilmember Zhang didn't mind. From his account, we know that Kong Guangna's parents immigrated to Argentina 5 years ago. Her older brother runs a restaurant in Xingli, and Councilmember Zhang has always admired Guangna. He even wanted her to enter politics and succeed him, because his eldest son, Taikyu, is devoted to his career, and his second son, Suinhu, is a good-for-nothing. So Assemblyman Zhang treats Guangna like a daughter. He indirectly inquired about her amnesia. He also probed into why Guangna was living in a place like Guangchen apartment. Zhuzha answered flawlessly. She said she liked the quiet. As for whether she could regain her memories, it didn't matter. She was very satisfied with her current life. After Zhuzha finished speaking, she left with the takeout container. This is Representative Zhang's new work in the kitchen annex. Meanwhile, the second young Master Zhang watched her leave from the second floor. Zhu Jie brought food to Gumori, because the human possessed by this wandering spirit is so pitiful. She lived in an orphanage since she was little. After her time at the orphanage ended, she lived independently. The poor girl even worked 5 jobs. But she was swindled out of her savings by a friend she trusted. He ultimately chose suicide. After Gomori possessed him, he immediately went to find those swindlers and recovered the original owner's savings. Actually, the person possessed by the little assistant, Gu Mandao, also had a tragic life. It seems he died from overwork after working late into the night. These humans are also tragic. Zhu Jie asked Gomori to inquire whether there were any more people he killed, but the criminal wasn't arrested because Duo Wen kept delaying her. Zhu Jie had lost the will to live. She just wanted to finish her task and return to hell. Unexpectedly, just as she was about to let go, she received a call from the police, because the victims of both cases were defendants Zhu Jie had handled. So the police will definitely want to ask her a few questions. But Sister Zhu is a very articulate judge. She'll quickly seize the initiative. You're happy that Pei Xiong is dead, aren't you? You feel excited and relieved, right? No. Duo Wen, as a police officer, believes that criminals should face legal consequences, receive the punishment they deserve. Dying so inexplicably hinders the police investigation. It doesn't feel satisfying. Duo Wen actually suspected Zhu Jie was the murderer, so he intentionally kept his distance from her. But Zhu Jie insisted on Duo Wen sending her home. As soon as they arrived at Guangtian apartments, they ran into an old lady. Zhu Jie couldn't help but admire how amazing the old lady was. But Duo Wen couldn't sleep because of those words. After all, he had indeed died once because of Zhu Jie, while Duo Wen was troubled. Zhao from the police station came with alcohol. Their relationship was as close as mother and son. Only Zhao knew what Duo Wen had experienced. However, fate does give surprises. The next day, Guamo Rue went to Zhu Jie to report the unsolved case she had investigated. The murderer brutally killed 12 people. He's still at large. The statute of limitations on his prosecution expires on May 8, 2014. Although a 10-year-old child witnessed the perpetrator, his testimony wasn't accepted at the time. Duan asks Jia Memory to look into that child. Unsurprisingly, the child is likely the main character. Duan arrives at the roadside where Hyunsu drowned, because the police found the victim Xia Yong's car here. Duo Wen looked around and suddenly saw a can. And the way the can was crushed was exactly the same as Zhu Jie's. Zhu Jie didn't know she'd given herself away. She had just received a thank you gift from Ji Hao. She was preparing a return gift for the children. It was Zhu Jie who pulled some strings to send Ji Hao a letter from heaven. I conveyed what Hyunsu wanted to say to her son. Zhuja did a good deed anonymously. She was at home reading the books that Dawan had read. Unexpectedly, the landlord knocked on the door, saying a new tenant had moved in next door. And that tenant was Han Dawan. Zhuja looked into his eyes and suddenly felt a pang of heartache. Then she collapsed. Dawan was startled by what he saw. Hurry and send Zhu Jie to the hospital for a checkup. But the doctor didn't find any abnormalities. They could only determine that the patient was subjected to external stimulation, triggering a sudden palpitation. What kind of stimulation could Zhu Jie have received? It's nothing more than her heart racing from looking at Duo Wen. It's just that the demon still doesn't understand what this represents. In short, the two officially began living next door to him. Zhu Jie didn't consider herself cautious. But living so close to a criminal investigator, she would inevitably slip up and get into trouble. So she asked her assistant to check on Jiang Guangna to quickly dispel Han Duowen's suspicions. At this time, Guamo Rue sent a text message asking Zhu Jie to meet. She left the apartment building. Duo Wen secretly followed me soon after. But Zhu Jie is a devil. I saw her turn into a side street and disappear. Successfully shook off Duo Wen. Arrived at the convenience store where Guamo Rue works. The latter wanted to invite Zhu Jie to a devil's gathering. It turns out that the devils dispatched to Seoul and Gyeonggi-do hold regular meetings to exchange information. We're tracking down Satan, who escaped from hell. If we can offer Satan to Lucifer and Baal, we'll surely achieve great merit and immediately return to hell. Ju Jia was indeed moved by this. The next day, they called their assistant and went to the party location. Little did they know, Duo Win followed them. The building's exterior clearly read Delicious Cuisine Academy, but he suspected it was some kind of illegal gathering. Duo Win bursts into a classroom. He finds himself in a den of devils. Unlucky Ju Jia has to step in to save the situation. She claims Duo Win is her driver. You see, Ju Jia is in hell, but she's a top-tier, universally beloved idol goddess. The party organizer, hearing that Ju Jia brought a newcomer, hurriedly steps forward to explain the reason for the party's formation. It all began 26 years ago. Lucifer, who was once an angel, fell from grace and became a demon. He officially took control of hell. But Satan, the second in command alongside Baal, started a rebellion. Of course, Satan couldn't defeat Lucifer. He had to abandon his followers and flee hell. As long as I have this magic item, even in the mortal realm, one can enjoy immortality in a human body. But Satan, fleeing back then, accidentally dropped Kaelin into the mortal world. Since then, there's been no news of either of them. Duo Win didn't seem affected by this. He was more curious about why Ju Jia was sent to Jiujian. What mission was she tasked with? The latter, of course, refused to confess. Duo Win simply stayed put, refusing to leave. He volunteered with the devil, distributing bento boxes to the local elderly and widowed. The devil would organize such an event every now and then. It was a way to better disguise himself as a human. Duo Win observed everything. He even discovered that the head of the volunteers was a devil. You can even cry? Do you intend to report this?
무슨 말씀이신지.
내가 눈물 흘리는 거 같으니까 답답해.
It seems that a demon shedding tears is a bad omen. Duo Wen agreed to keep it a secret for the chairman. The latter also warned him to stay away from Ju Jie. Otherwise, you won't even know how your head gets chopped off. But the chairman quickly noticed that Ju Jie seems to have fallen for this human. You must know that if a demon falls for a mortal, it will cost them their life. Just as Ju Jia was suffering from heart palpitations, her assistant secretly joined the church. Even though the Bible felt like a burning coal in his hands, he unfailingly attended prayers, dreaming of the day he could cleanse his sins and see what heaven looks like. The boss in Shinli would never exploit his employees. Days passed in a chaotic mess. Duo Wen wanted to investigate Ju Jie's case, but there were no fingerprints of hers on the Coke can, and the police station soon received a new case. That night, a man from Changyangaro, Yeongseung-gu, Seoul, called for help, claiming his wife and children were murdered. By the time the police arrived at the scene, I saw blood everywhere. An axe and a hammer were scattered on the floor. Several bodies were still warm. The male head of the household was close to a mental breakdown. I think I know who did it.
혹시 의심 가는 사람 있으십니까?
Duo Wen arrived at the scene immediately after receiving the news. The bodies of the mother and her two children remained undisturbed. A family portrait of the four of them was lying nearby. The familiar scene reminded Duo Wen of the day his family was murdered. After the male homeowner, Liang Shengbin, was brought to the police station, he immediately changed his story, saying he wasn't the murderer. But there were no signs of forced entry at the crime scene, and his fingerprints were on the murder weapon.
왜 시카에 제 지문이 묻어있는지도 저 모르겠고 저 죽인 적도 없고 죽였다고 저...
According to Liang Shengbin, his eldest son was going through a rebellious phase, so their relationship wasn't good. So Liang Shengbin called his son to the living room to have a good talk with him. But he doesn't remember anything that happened afterwards. When he came to, his family was dead. During the subsequent interrogation, Liang Shengbin's behavior became even stranger. He seemed to suffer from dissociative identity disorder. He suddenly said his name was Jin Jilu. He's a student in class 2, grade 5, at Nanning Primary School. Then another personality emerged, saying he's Liang Shengbin's good friend, Gu Daowan. Duo Wen readily complied. He questioned Gu Daowan about whether he was the culprit. Unexpectedly, the other party readily confessed.
친한 친구의 가족을 죽인 이유가 뭐야?
승민이 무시...
Gu Daowan felt that his friend's wife and children had always been disrespectful to Shengbin. So, I asked for your help to teach them a lesson. Duo Wen has reviewed the files. He knows Liang Shengbin has a history of domestic violence. Considering this, it seems to be the doing of this Gu Daowan personality. The police were completely baffled. They didn't know if this kid was genuinely mentally ill, or just acting for everyone. After a series of examinations, the doctor can't completely rule out the possibility of Liang Shengbin having amnesia and dissociative identity disorder. He needs a more thorough examination. Meanwhile, Duo Wen has been interrogating Shengbin. He told him, there are 3 personalities within you. Duo Wen deliberately reversed and mispronounced the surname of Ju and Lu. Then he pointed out that Shengbin hadn't met Gu Zhulu. He said he was a police officer, but the other party called him officer.
누군지는 모르겠지만 이 드라마에 이런 데 많이 나오.
Liang Shengbin subconsciously corrected Jin Julie's surname. Duo Wen already had a plan in mind. At the same time, Ju Jia also set her sights on this case. She didn't care if the killer was mentally ill or not. As long as someone was killed, they had to pay the price. Regardless of whether Liang Shengbin was acting or not, he's certainly dedicated anyway. even in front of his mother-in-law and sister-in-law. He switches between 3 personalities. Let's get back to the case. All the victims showed signs of being struck on the back of the head with a hammer. The key cause of death for all 3 was a severed jugular vein leading to excessive blood loss. And the autopsy reports show Liang Shangbin continued to stab the victims' bodies with a knife even after their deaths. The son's body was the most severely damaged. His body showed 13 stab wounds. The eldest son's phone was also found at the scene. However, it was severely damaged and is currently being repaired. But it was severely damaged and is under repair. After Duo Wen used the ruse of changing his surname to expose a flaw, he was certain that Liang Shangbin was feigning multiple personalities. But they must produce more conclusive evidence. Just then, the police station received news that Judge Kong Guangna used her connections to transfer from the single judge court to the settlement court, and was assigned the Liang Sungbin case. In a blink of an eye, the trial day arrived. Liang Sungbin's lawyer attacked from the angle of multiple personality disorder, doing everything to help him escape conviction. The prosecution has commissioned the National Forensic Science Institute to conduct a thorough psychiatric evaluation of the defendant. Both sides are locked in a stalemate, neither willing to yield. At this moment, the lawyer quietly told Liang Shangbin not to speak. But his attitude angered the defendant. The so-called Gu Daowan personality emerged. He insisted on killing the lawyer in court for disrespecting him. Zhu Jia watched him cause a scene in court with interest. Then, it was announced that a thorough examination of the defendant would be conducted first. The sentencing date will be set after the results of the examination are released. In the evening, Zhu Jia and Jemri sneaked into the hospital. They planned to use physical therapy to cure Liang Shangbin's multiple personality disorder. Unexpectedly, Duo Wen suddenly popped out from under the bed. He grabbed her ankle. Zhu Jia quickly freed herself and fled in a panic. After Duo Wen lost track, he immediately returned to Huangtian apartment to stake out. Zhu Jia faced the questioning calmly and confidently, asking Duo Wen to present evidence. The police station received an assistance document from the mobile phone company, learning that it would take at least a month to repair the victim's phone. In other words, if there is crucial evidence inside, we can only try to submit it during the second trial. But Duo Wen knows that Zhu Jia is a ticking time bomb. She might let the murderer go free during the first trial. In a flash, Duo Wen suddenly thought of accessing the deceased's cloud account to check. Inside, there was indeed an audio recording secretly made. When the eldest son was murdered, he rushed to the court and pressed play. Everyone could clearly hear that Liang Shangbin was driven to murder after his son reported domestic abuse. He acted impulsively, intending to retaliate. His wife had just gotten home from work and stumbled upon the scene of her eldest son's murder. Before she could even question her husband, Liang Shangbin grabbed a hammer, struck her down, and then stabbed her. Their young daughter heard her mother's screams and came to investigate. He was also murdered by Liang Shangbin. The recording shows the perpetrator was aware of his actions. Liang Shangbin undoubtedly committed murder. But Zhu Jia refused to acknowledge the recording as evidence, because it hadn't been submitted beforehand. Therefore, Liang Shangbin was still judged to have acted while in a state of mental derangement. So the court found him not guilty. He only needs to undergo 2 years of therapeutic supervision. This announcement caused an uproar. The victim's mother, in particular, couldn't accept the verdict. If someone you loved died, would you make the same judgment? Zhu Jia saw the disappointment in Duo Wen's eyes, and her heart seized with pain again. Duo Wen followed Liang Shangbin onto the prisoner transport vehicle. But halfway there, a large truck suddenly appeared, violently ramming the police bus. 2 men in black jumped out of the truck. Their skills were exceptional. They quickly subdued several police officers. Then they leaped onto the bus and pulled Liang Shangbin out. Duo Wen, seeing this, quickly grabbed his gun and chased after them. One of the men in black grabbed Liang Shangbin and left. The remaining thugs kept Duo Wen occupied. Duo Wen fought back, tackling a man in black and subduing him. But the man carrying Liang Shangbin quickly turned around. He pointed at Duo Wen, threw him onto the bus, and knocked him unconscious. Finally, the 2 remaining men in black left with Liang Shangbin and delivered him to Jemri. Duo Wen guessed this matter was related to Sister Zhu, so he immediately returned to the apartment to question her. Actually, Sister Zhu had been very worried about Duo Wen since she heard about the prison van explosion. But he was in a rage at the moment and didn't notice this. He told Sister Zhu to quickly send Liang Shangbin back and to reinitiate the interrogation. Duo Wen stayed up to prevent Zhu Jia from killing the criminal. He simply dragged a chair and waited at her doorstep. Late at night, a dark figure slowly approached Zhu Jia. Then Duo Wen heard a banging sound from behind the door. He quickly knocked on the door to ask what was happening, but Zhu Jia's tone was calm and unperturbed. Although Duo Wen couldn't see that the person behind the door was the assistant, he instinctively sensed something was wrong. But when he went outside the apartment building to check, the assistant had already retrieved the rope from upstairs. Meanwhile, Zhu Jia, who had slipped downstairs, had already arrived in front of Liang Shangbin. She first tortured the murderer, making Liang Shangbin experience the suffering of the victim. He was tortured to the point of mental collapse, but he couldn't escape this building. At first, Liang Shangbin thought the judge was playing a prank. He wanted to continue feigning a dissociative personality disorder to maintain his persona, but he quickly realized that Zhu Jia was going for the kill. Liang Shangbin, unable to resist, could only kneel and plead guilty. Zhu Jia, however, countered with an arithmetic problem.
5 더하기 3 더하기 14 해봐.
21?
맞아? 21. 네가 가족들을 칼로 찔.
Zhu Jia picked up a sword and stabbed Liang Shangbin 21 times. When only one stab remained, Zhu Jia summoned the Sword of Judgment. We sent Liang Shengben straight to hell. The criminal's body will be used as fuel. Night and day, it will be burned in hellfire. The next morning, Duo Wen saw Zhu Jia off to work. Just when I thought the mission was finally successful, I suddenly received news of Liang Xingbin's death. His body was dumped in Duo Wen's jurisdiction. This situation is no different from the previous 2 times. The scene still yields no clues. Duo Wen pulls out the Devil Volunteer Association president's business card. He decides to go ask him. On the other hand, the little assistant, Zhao Zhujia, anxiously investigated Jiang Guangna's life. But he only found out some trivial matters. Like why Jiang Guangna's parents immigrated, and by whom she was murdered. And the suspicious points such as the reasons for breaking off the engagement. The assistant didn't find out anything. The scene shifts back to Duo Wen. He unexpectedly learns of the volunteer president's suicide. Because the president was afraid that Zhu Jia would see him crying. Duo Wen suspects Zhu Jia of being responsible for the president's death. But the actual killer is Jemri. She wasn't sent to the human world to kill criminals. Instead, I'm responsible for punishing those demons who become humanized or fall in love with humans. After she discovered the chairman cried, she secretly tracked him. She found out the chairman fell in love with a human. Primary stated plainly, as long as you return to hell and accept your judgment honestly, I won't bother your human lover. Upon hearing this, the chairman had no choice but to commit suicide. At this time, the cleaning crew came to report to Guemoverway. While cleaning up Liang Xingbin's body, they discovered that Zhu Jia's murder this time was filled with intense emotion. And Zhu Jia, the perpetrator, was unusually at the victim's doorstep eavesdropping. The deceased's mother learned of Liang Xingbin's tragic death. I didn't feel any sense of triumph. She originally wanted to see that guy convicted in court and truly pay the price. Zhu Jia felt inexplicably heartbroken hearing this. This was the beginning of her gradual corruption by humanity. Soon after, Duo Wen caught up to Zhu Jia and questioned her about killing the chairman. Sister Zhu knew nothing about this, but Duo Wen believed the chairman's death was her doing. The two had a very unpleasant argument because of this. Sister Zhu returned to her apartment, fuming. She then ran into Assemblyman Zhang's son, Taikyu. He hoped that Sister Zhu wouldn't abuse the Assemblyman's favor and arbitrarily use her privileges to cause trouble in court, and that the two families should avoid seeing each other in the future. Besides that, Takeaway also inexplicably said, the neighbors in Wengshan apartment are dangerous. You better be careful. That night, a single mother in the apartment was walking alone on the dimly lit street. Unexpectedly, a mysterious person suddenly dragged her into an alley. The person raised a weapon, about to strike. Luckily, 2 neighbors passing by stopped him in time. The mysterious man gave up and fled. The single mother quickly went to the police station to report the incident. It happened so suddenly that she didn't remember many details. She only knew that the weapon used by the criminal was unusual. After the single mother finished speaking, she drew 7 sketches on a piece of paper. It was a rhombus-shaped, spiked weapon. The female police officer's heart sank after seeing them. The district attorney who killed Dawen's mother several years ago also used similar tools. The policewoman didn't tell Dawen yet, but instead continued to focus on the recent serial killings. They had already investigated all state-registered branding iron manufacturers, but found no clues. On the other hand, Sister Zhu, because of the previous acquittal of Liang Shangbin, she was scolded online terribly. Protest banners were even taken to the courthouse. Luckily, Zhu Jie had Representative Zhang's protection. She was only sent back to a separate courtroom. Her assistant reminded Zhu Jie that the landlady had sent a group message. She organized a hiking team building event for all the residents. Zhu Jie naturally had no intention of participating. She packed up her things and left work early. I happened to see 2 bullies harassing a classmate. Zhu Jie couldn't stand it and stepped in to help. Unexpectedly, the 2 girls tried to fight back. Zhu Jie doesn't have a rule against hitting children. She immediately took action to teach them a lesson. The matter quickly reached the police station. Coincidentally, the female student Zhu Jie saved turned out to be the policewoman's daughter, Duoshi, because Zhu Jie assaulted a minor while helping. Therefore, the 2 girls' mothers were arrogant and condescending. They insisted on accusing Zhu Jie of using violence.
내친 김에 학폭위도
The 2 women fell silent upon hearing this. Duoshi was very happy to have gotten revenge 7 times over. However, the female police officer couldn't help but angrily scold her. After all, a serial killer from many years ago had just appeared near the Huangtian apartments. My daughter went alone to that area. She still feels terrified when she thinks about it. After surviving the ordeal, Duhee was inexplicably scolded. She left the police station feeling very wronged. Meanwhile, Duwon was very disturbed these past few days because of Zhu Jie. He found that strange old woman. He asked her what she meant by her previous words. Why, if I'm with Zhu Jie, one of you will die. The landlady explained that I was a friend of your parents before they passed away. I was entrusted to protect you. I can't reveal more details, but you should leave Huangtian apartments immediately and never see Zhu Jie again. I'm fulfilling a promise from those days, reminding you that life or death is entirely your own choice. This would have been unthinkable before. Duo Wen wouldn't have believed such unfounded nonsense. But he's already died once at Zhu Jie's hands. He's witnessed her supernatural abilities. So Duo Wen started deliberately avoiding Zhu Jie. The latter naturally noticed this. So she unexpectedly participated in the team building activity. Now Duo Wen can't escape. He could only thank Zhu Jie for saving Mang Di first. After all, she saved Duo Shi. Zhu Jie also learned that Duo Wen wasn't the policewoman's biological son. At that time, he said he killed 3 people. He actually meant his parents and younger brother. Duo Wen always felt he was responsible for his family's deaths. Perhaps it was a long overdue confession. Duo Wen was unusually relaxed today. He even got drunk at the dinner gathering on the evening of the 7th. In his drunken stupor, he mumbled ambiguous things to Agent Zhu. He said many ambiguous and suggestive things. Finally, he collapsed onto the ground and passed out. It was Agent Zhu who carried Duo Wen home in a princess carry. The drunk man continued to chatter. He had to arrest the culprit, but he didn't want Agent Zhu to be the killer. Duo Wen didn't want to be drawn in by the devil. But I can't control my heart. Zhu Jie was flustered upon hearing this. She quickly got up to help Duo Wen get a blanket. But she discovered the can in the evidence bag. Zhu Jie was very disappointed after seeing it. It turned out that Duo Wen had only moved in to investigate the case. He almost tricked her into letting her guard down with sweet words. Zhu Jie told Guemo Rue to hurry up with the investigation. They found a witness to the serial killings from back then. She needs to finish her task and return to hell as soon as possible. At this point in the plot, a new side case is about to begin. An annual Business Leader Award ceremony is being held inside a large commercial building. The winner is Mr. Choi Won-young, representative of KO Foods. He looks impeccably dressed in a suit. It's nothing. I even rescue stray dogs sometimes. He looks every bit the successful businessman. But outside the company, a large group of protesting employees had gathered. Father asked Choi Won-young to handle the strike quickly.
네가 너무 사람이 좋으니까 아래 것들이 분수도 모르고
Choi Won-young immediately invited the protest representatives for a private conversation. Everyone thought it was a good sign. Chien quietly watched the manager get into the car. The car quickly arrived at Choi Won-young's private residence. He commanded the executive to sit down like he was training a dog. Then he looked up and gestured towards the iron cage in the corner. Inside was a taxidermied pet dog. Choi Won-young told the executive something meaningful. He used to love this little dog very much. But it became disobedient, and this is what happened to it. The executive felt a chill down his spine. Immediately after, Choi Won-young gave him a sum of money. I wanted to get rid of these beggars. But the person in charge cowardly drove back, saying that in the past 3 years, 5 people had already died in the factory. They weren't trying to blackmail the company, but hoping for a safe working environment. Choi Won-young, the smiling tiger, picked up the kettle upon hearing this, and said jokingly, actually, we're just like ordinary people. He would also lick the yogurt lid and eat instant noodles. Saying this, he moved the scalding kettle close to the person in charge.
저 화나게 하지 마세요. 제가 갖고 싶은 걸 못 가져본 적이.
The person in charge was scared and quickly bid farewell. He held onto the handrail of the stairs. Only then could he barely steady his weak legs. The person in charge was about to call his colleagues. Unexpectedly, a van suddenly pulled up. Several men in black got out and took him away. When the executive woke up again, he found himself on a golf course. Choi Won-young was swinging his club, hitting ball after ball at him. After the brutal torture ended, the executive limped away with a broken leg and accidentally lost his recording device after falling. He didn't bother to go back for it. A car drove straight towards them. The person in charge's wife and daughter couldn't get in touch with him, so they quickly went to the police station to report it. But because the person in charge is an adult, the time he'd been missing didn't meet the criteria for filing a report, so the police station could only ask the 2 to go home and wait. 5 days passed in the blink of an eye. News of the person in charge, Yuan Changshuan's disappearance, finally made the news. Sister Zhu isn't interested in such a small case. Who would have known that someone from the hell cleaning crew would actually come and ask her to find Yuan Changxian? Because they lived in the same community. That old man was known for his kindness in the neighborhood. Clean Ian wouldn't have any enemies. They suspect the owner of KO Foods is the culprit. He likely already murdered Yuan Changxian. Mentioning the dead man, Zhu Jie finally showed some interest. She wrote Yuan Changshuan's name on the glass. No image appeared, indicating that this person was already dead. Sure enough, soon after, a mountain climber discovered Yuan Changshuan's body. The police quickly called Cui Yuanzhong to the station for questioning, because they found a recording device. They also found a record of a money transfer. The police have reason to suspect that Choi Won-young, having failed to bribe someone, tried to have him killed to silence him. However, Choi Won-young claimed he only slightly injured Wan Chang's son. Furthermore, the recording only proves assault. It doesn't prove that he killed Wan Chang's son. Soon after, the police chief also pressured the female officer. Let her turn a blind eye to this case. The policewoman, of course, wouldn't cooperate. Meanwhile, Choi Won-young's father, Chairman Choi, was kneeling on the ground, begging Assemblyman Zhang for help. He was willing to give up a piece of land after the matter was settled. Assemblyman Zhang, having received the bribe, immediately started to work on it. After the court superior received his hint, he privately signaled to Zhu to acquit the defendant. Choi Won-jung appeared in court with 2 lawyers. Even the prosecution, representing the defendant, was bought off, despite audio recordings and street surveillance footage, proving Choi Won-jung assaulted the victim. He lied, claiming he accidentally injured the deceased. He also claimed that dragging Wan Changxian into the car and taking him to the gym was due to the security chief's excessive force. He insisted he only wanted to invite his employee to play some basketball. Choi Yuanzhong has been in the business world for many years, a seasoned veteran who's impossible to crack. The first trial could only be hastily concluded, and the police investigation has made little progress. Duo Wen could only turn to Sister Zhu for help. After all, the devil's abilities far surpass those of humans. Although Sister Zhu was determined not to get involved, she couldn't resist Duo Wen's heartfelt plea. I had no choice but to follow him to confirm the victim's state. Zhu Jie held Yuan Changshuan's head down. She saw what happened to the victim before his death. He was indeed strangled to death by Chui Yuanzhong's men. But Zhu Jie lied to Duo Wen, saying the victim committed suicide. On the other hand, the female police officer ignored the case in front of her. She and the young policeman Xiao Peng were staking out Huangtian apartment, hoping to catch the person who killed Duo Wen's parents years ago. Xiao Peng hadn't eaten dinner and his stomach was rumbling constantly. The policewoman told him to buy some food nearby. Then she would stay in the car. Xiao Peng urged her not to act alone under any circumstances. The policewoman casually agreed. Unexpectedly, not long after Xiao Peng left, a man in black really appeared. The policewoman quickly reclined her seat and hid in the shadows. She saw a weapon in the black-clad man's pocket. It was a uniquely designed weapon. She immediately realized that this person was Chu Shou. The policewoman immediately contacted Xiao Peng, but the latter's phone was busy. After hesitating, she still chased after him with her baton. The black-clad man was crouching in the corner, preparing to ambush her. Unexpectedly, the policewoman was incredibly skilled. After a few moves, he was surprisingly trapped. The man in black could only turn and flee. The two chased each other in the narrow alley. The policewoman was almost stabbed by the man in black, but she still stayed close behind him and successfully cornered him in the alley. She had been waiting for this day for 25 years. Meanwhile, Duo Wen and the others returned to the Huangtian apartment. They found the overweight police officer nearby. He was wondering where the team leader in the car had gone. A gunshot rang out from the alley. Duo Wen rushed in without hesitation. He even picked up that strange weapon along the way. It was engraved with KSY. When Duo Wen found the dead man, he only saw a pool of blood. The disappearance of an active police officer quickly drew the attention of superiors. And they must find policewoman Kim So-young. After preliminary identification by the forensics department, the blood at the scene was confirmed to belong to policewoman Kim So-young. To avoid affecting the investigation, Kim So-young's Major Crimes Unit 2 is not allowed to participate in this case. They just need to focus on the case at hand. Duo Wen had no choice but to obey. But he decided to check on Duo He at Zhao Ying's place first. Then his brother-in-law handed him a document, saying that Zhao Ying was recently reviewing his family's case again, and that she mentioned the perpetrator seemed to have reappeared. His brother-in-law said this wasn't to blame Duo Wen, but rather, he hoped he wouldn't disappoint Zhao Ying's expectations. We must persevere and stick to our posts. Zhu Jie has been unable to eat or sleep these past 2 days worrying about Duo Wen. She wanted to use the mirror to check on Kim So-young's situation, but at the last moment, she closed the mirror. Since Duo Wen believes Kim So-young is still alive, Zhu Jie doesn't want to see a bad outcome either. Duo Wen quickly texted her to ask Zhu Jie to investigate the Wenchang Sun case together. After talking with my brother-in-law, he felt he couldn't leave his post again and let sister Zhao Ying down. The two went to the deceased's colleague's house to ask questions. Choi Wenjing claimed to the outside world that Wen Changxian was addicted to gambling, so he used the strike to blackmail him. But Wen Changxian's colleague said, Brother Wen wouldn't gamble at all. He really is short of money, because his daughter has cancer. The medicine is a huge expense. This colleague was planning to resign because of Yuan Changshuan's death, so he agreed to testify for Wen. But on the day of the trial, the colleague changed his story. He claimed Yuan Changxian was blackmailing the company because of gambling debts. Clearly, he's been bought off by Choi Wenyang. The interrogation ended hastily. The council members held a dinner party in the evening. They asked Juja to have dinner with Chairman Choi. How did you forge the evidence about the gambling? The documents are a work of art. The lawyers are very capable. Juja endured the nausea and finished the meal. Go to the convenience store and find Gemma Rue immediately. The latter checked the witness information for the 7 serial murders. Zhu Jie opened the file and saw that it was Duo Wen. The case had a breakthrough, but she couldn't be happy. Zhu Jie didn't yet understand this emotion, this feeling of unease. Gemma Rue had already noticed her unusual feelings for Duo Wen. He was secretly observing Zhu Jie's reaction. At this time, Duo Wen still didn't know that the devil was feeling sorry for him. He instructed Xiao Peng to provide personal protection for Chui Yuanzhong, because Wen Qingjun, Pei Xiong, and Liang Shengbin all died mysteriously after receiving lenient sentences from Judge Zhu. Following this pattern, Chui Yuanzhong will be the next target. That's why he needs personal protection. Chui Yuanzhong's case will soon enter its final hearing, because the prosecution's evidence is insufficient. In addition, the defendant paid a bail bond to the court. Therefore, Judge Xu, based on Article 281, Paragraph 1 of the criminal law, on the charge of intentional injury resulting in imprisonment, sentenced Chui Yuanzhong to 1 year imprisonment with a 2-year probation. He was also sentenced to 40 hours of community service. This punishment is practically nothing. Probation means he won't go to jail. Yuan's seriously ill daughter cannot accept this verdict. He fainted right there in the courtroom. Zhu Jie felt a pang of discomfort when she saw it. The reporters present were filled with righteous indignation. They wrote many reports criticizing Zhu Jie. She didn't feel much about that. But Duo Wen's look made her sad. On the other hand, Yuan Changshuan's daughter hadn't had chemotherapy for so long. Even the doctor thought she was beyond saving. But miraculously, she woke up, and the cancer cells had stopped spreading. The girl even received financial assistance from kind people. She no longer had to worry about medical expenses. As for the 4 thugs who kidnapped Yuan Changxian that day, they all perished in a fire. Only this time, it was the janitor who did it. He simply couldn't stand seeing these people get away with it, so they got rid of the trash. They also donated 200 million won to the hospital to take care of Wen Chang's daughter. But her miraculously improved condition wasn't something they could control.
천사가 잠시 곁에 머물렀다 간 걸지도.
On the other hand, the arrogant Choi Won-young refused the police's offer of personal protection. It's laughable. This guy is actually a devout Christian. He believes God will always protect him. Little does he know, Ju Jie is already preparing to act. The disguised assistant threatens Choi Yuen-jong, saying if he doesn't want the evidence released, he should come to the amusement park near the golf course. And if he dares to bring backup, I'll immediately post the evidence online. Choi Won-young, to ensure foolproof success, deliberately had his subordinate drive his car, luring away Officer Xiao Peng, who was waiting outside. Then he went to the amusement park alone. A clown popped out to welcome Choi Won-young, while Gu Emorwei seized the opportunity to attack, injecting him with an anesthetic. Ju Jie was preparing to leave, but Duo Wen stopped him. He wanted to persuade the demon not to kill, to hand the criminal over to the law for judgment. But Ju Jie questioned Duo Wen. What if I could catch the person who killed your mother? The statute of limitations has passed. The law can't try him. So don't stop me anymore. Stand by me. Duo Wen stepped forward and hugged Ju Jie. But he still couldn't accept her proposal. When Choi Yuen-jong regained consciousness, he was already tied up on the golf course. The scene from a few days ago was reversed. He became a living target in front of Ju Jie. The devil's golf skills were superb. Every shot was a hit. Choi Yuen-jong fainted and was beaten awake. He woke up and was knocked unconscious again. After several repetitions, he finally escaped the playground. But he was taken into the woods by 2 cleaners and hanged. The whole process was just as he had done to Yuan Changxian. When the desperate Choi Yuen-jong climbed out of the coffin, he found himself back at the amusement park. Ju Jie, her patience exhausted, stepped forward to deliver the final judgment.
아니 그게 무슨 개소리야 이 판사 새끼야!
Ju Jie snapped her fingers upon hearing this. 2 evil beasts emerged from the wall, trailing black aura, and ran towards Choi Yuen-jong. The latter, in a panic, ran into the ticket hall. One of the evil beasts leaped onto the small pavilion, effectively forcing Choi Yuen-jong out. He scrambled out and ran towards the Ferris wheel, but Ju Jie instantly appeared beside him in pursuit. They kicked and beat Choi Yuen-jong until he was dazed and confused. After he finally confessed his crimes, Ju Jie summoned the Blade of Judgment and sent him on his way. She grabbed his body and threw it off the Ferris wheel. Unexpectedly, Duo Wen filmed the whole scene. It turned out that when they embraced earlier, he had placed a tracker on Ju Jie. Duo Wen once again used the unwavering sincerity of the devil. Sister Zhu prepared to grab the phone, but she ended up covered in sulfur powder. This stuff can prevent demons from using any abilities for 2 hours. He learned about it from his assistant. He was about to arrest Sister Zhu for murder, when he received a call saying they had found Kim So-yang. After handcuffing Sister Zhu, Du-won handcuffed Sister Zhu, hurriedly heading to the scene. Sadly, Zhao Ying, whom he treated like his own child, was already dead. The crime scene still had the letter drawn on it, just like the day his mother was murdered decades ago. In 1999, Jean Zhao Ying was still a rookie police officer. That day, she rushed to the Lianzhou cave scene. She discovered a pool of blood and a body, while the young Duo Wen was hiding in the bedroom crying. Zhao Ying, being a police officer, should have comforted the child. But because of various complex emotions within her, she started crying too. She didn't know how to explain this to Duo Wen. From that moment, Zhao Ying made up her mind to become a cool police officer, to catch the culprit and avenge the victims. Later, she would occasionally visit Duo Wen at school. The boy was bullied by his classmates because he was an orphan. His fragile self-esteem was hurt. Duo Wen was unwilling to accept Zhao Ying's help, but this female police officer was stubborn. She and her husband came over again and again. They participated in Duo Wen School's parent-child sports day. Slowly, they touched the child's heart. Finally, they persuaded Duo Wen to move in with them. Zhao Ying filled the void left by her mother. But now, tragedy repeats itself. An enraged Duo Wen returns to the amusement park. He picks up a stone and smashes the phone that recorded the evidence. Then he hands the remains to Ju Jie. He no longer cares about the police or the law. Duo Wen just wants that person dead. He just wants to kill the serial killer with his own hands. He was willing to die at Ju Jie's hands, and go to hell with her. Ju Jie was shocked, feeling no joy at all. She had clearly dragged Duo Wen down with her, but a sharp pain shot through her heart. A tear rolled down the devil's cheek. Since Duo Wen had firmly decided to cooperate with the devil, they naturally had to start by investigating the cause of Officer Jean Zhao Ying's death. Ju Jie touched the victim's forehead. The scene of the crime day flashed before her eyes. Zhao Ying was shot in the leg and fell to the ground. Then, she was stabbed in the shoulder. The camera was about to show the killer, but Ju Jie couldn't bear it and moved her hand away. At the subsequent funeral, Duo Wen gave a eulogy. Unexpectedly, it started raining heavily halfway through. The rain gave Ju Jie an excuse to cry. She grasped Gu Emorwei's hand, which was reaching for an umbrella. She allowed herself to be exposed to the heavy rain. Duo Wen couldn't contain his excitement. He declared that he would personally catch Ju Shou and tear him to pieces. Seeing this, Ju Jie's tears flowed like Iguazu Falls. They poured down incessantly. She suspected something was wrong with her. I also went to see an ophthalmologist, because my eyes showed no problems. Then she went to a psychiatrist. After the doctor understood the reason behind Ju Jie's tears, he said, "You are experiencing compassion and love, which is why you suddenly feel heartache and cry." Ju Jie was about to retort, but the doctor preempted her by asking, "If you could make that man cry, what would happen if you disappeared from the world?" Ju Jie's words caught in her throat. She realized she was in big trouble. Meanwhile, Guillermo Rue had noticed her transformation. That night, he stopped the young assistant and revealed his true identity. He ordered him to help monitor Zhu Jie's every move. The scene shifts back to the police station. Because of police officer Jin Zhao Ying's death scene, the letter appeared. Therefore, it was classified as an unsolved serial murder case and transferred to the Metropolitan Investigation Team. The newcomer, Lao Li, replaced Zhao Ying, taking over as the head of the Major Crimes Unit 2. He also brought a new recruit, criminal police officer Zhang Wenqiu, to join the team. Major Crimes Unit 2 remained responsible for the branding serial murder case. Only Wen's state of mind was different from before. He already knows that Zhu Jia is the murderer, and she's specifically responsible for executing unrepentant criminals. Now the two of them have formed a partnership. Duo Wen no longer insists on arresting Zhu Jie. What's law and order? Punishing criminals is the right way. It can be said that Jin Zhao Ying's death completely changed Duo Wen. In the afternoon, Zhu Jie worried that he wasn't eating. I specifically arranged to meet Duo Wen at a restaurant, but we ran into some people discussing the police officer assault case. They treated the tragic incident as a curious anecdote. Their callous discussion of Zhao Ying's death. Duo Wen lost it on the spot when he heard it. Zhu Jie was afraid he would get sued and lose his job. So she deliberately stepped in, smashed the bystander's phone to divert attention. She hurriedly pulled Duo Wen away. Little did they know, Gomori was hiding nearby.
이제 아주 대놓고 데이트를 하시겠...
Zhu Jia was indeed getting deeper and deeper. She gave the photo of Jin Zhao Ying to the cleaning crew, asking them to investigate where the souls of Zhao Ying and the other members of the Duo Wen family are. This clearly wasn't authorized by Hell's higher-ups. But Zhu Jia knew the cleaning crew had burned the criminal without permission. She held their handle. Therefore, the two dared not disobey the order. That evening, Zhu Jia and Duo Wen organized the case clues. This was also the first time she heard about the tragic state in which Duo Wen's family died. Although Zhu Jie tried to cover it up by yawning, the young assistant realized that his boss was done for. He quickly went to report to Gemri. Unexpectedly, when the two met privately, I was caught red-handed by the fortune teller. From the last episode, we know that Grandma cured the victim's family's cancer. So she's definitely not human. Therefore, she must have seen through Gregory's ill intentions. Late at night, Grandma the fortune teller woke up Zhu Jie and revealed her true identity, transforming into 7 cosplay boys with large wings, and claiming to be the Archangel Gabriel. Such a cool character. Can't the prop department be more careful? The makeup and costumes aren't even as good as those at a second dimension ape comic convention. Gabriel was undercover in the city. Several times, he influenced the direction of the cases, preventing more victims. When the Duo Wen family was murdered, he was also at the scene, undercover as a police officer, and unexpectedly overheard Dawen's mother's prayer. Gabriel saw that Kim So-young wanted to take care of the child. So he intentionally or unintentionally added fuel to the fire, helping the couple adopt Dawen. But angels can only protect the good and the innocent. From the moment Dawen decided to kill, Gabriel could no longer protect him with the power of an angel. So now, only Zhu Jie can protect Duo Wen, and Gabriel said his prophecy wouldn't be wrong. One of Zhu Jie and Duo Wen will definitely die. At the same time, the landlady of the Huangtian apartment suddenly felt something was wrong. That day, she was entertaining Min Jun, a single-parent child, for a meal. The latter had a stomachache and rushed to the toilet. It seems the landlady also has some secrets. Min Jun didn't notice anything amiss. He went to school the next day, as cheerful as ever. Just then, Counselor Zhang's second son, Sun Ho, suddenly drove his car towards them. Gabriel quickly knocked over a cart, deliberately drawing the nearby students' attention. This prevented a major accident. Min Jun's mother was still unaware of this near miss. She had just finished her early shift and returned to the apartment. She kept thanking the landlady for preparing breakfast for June every day. Both women had lost their husbands long ago. Therefore, Min's mother was also under the landlady's care. At that moment, the television was reporting that a serial killer had reappeared after 25 years. Unexpectedly, the landlady was momentarily stunned after hearing this. She dropped the food tray, shattering it. On the other hand, Sun-Hu caused trouble and was detained by the police. Councilman Zhang immediately arranged 7 dinners, inviting the Chief Justice and Ms. Zhu to dinner. Ms. Zhu's presence would only spoil their appetite. So she frankly stated, "I will help get Sun-Hu a 4-year suspended sentence. As for the compensation, we can discuss that later." After saying this, she prepared to leave. I didn't expect Zhang Taekyu to follow me out. He wanted to know why Kong Guangna suddenly changed so drastically. It's like she's a completely different person.
강빈나는 절대로 홍춘동처럼 거지 같은 곳에서 살 위.
From what Zhang Taekyu said, this Kong Guangna is a gold digger. But I don't have a good impression of her family. And I don't intend to find out anything about the original owner from them. So he quickly abandoned takeaway and left. And the reason why Juja agreed to get involved in Sun-Hu's case was because after seeing the news report about the accident, her blocked ability suddenly returned. Juja was certain that Sun-Hu was the man in black who stabbed Kim So-young in the alley. Meanwhile, Du-won interfered with the investigation several times, trying to prevent his colleagues from finding out about Juja. Unexpectedly, criminal police Zhang Wenkai received a phone call. They said 7 surveillance cameras were found near the Haishi River. The Haishi River is where Zhu Jie murdered Pei Xiong. Normally, surveillance cameras wouldn't retain footage for 3 months. But last year, the boss's car was damaged in an accident. He learned his lesson. He deliberately installed machines with the longest video retention time. Zhang Wenkai was about to check them, but suddenly felt an urgent need to use the restroom. Duo Wen seized the opportunity to get the boss out of the way. He quickly reviewed the surveillance footage from the day of the incident. Sure enough, he saw Sister Zhu's red supercar. Duo Wen gritted his teeth and deleted the footage. After Zhang Wenqiu returned, he found that the most crucial part was missing. However, he had already noticed Duo Wen's little actions. Zhang Wenqi got straight to the point, saying, "I can help you keep this a secret. But next, you must listen to my instructions." In the evening, Zhang Wenqiu came to the place where Gu Mori worked. He said your guess was indeed correct. Han Duo Wen clearly knew everything, but still covered for Zhu Jie.
그럼 바일님의 명령대로 한다운을 죽여주십시오.
It turned out that not long ago, Gu Mori dared to summon Ball, reporting that a human was hindering Zhu Jie. So he pleaded with Ball to get rid of Duo Wen. Upon hearing this, the latter immediately sent his confidant, Paimon, to confirm. As for the real Zhang Wen, the criminal police officer, he died long ago during a field operation. The current Zhang Wenkai is Paimon. That night, he stopped Zhu Jie outside the Huangtian apartment. Unfortunately, Zhu Jie didn't recognize Paimon's true identity. Instead, she warned him not to harm Han Duo Wen. Paimon never expected. The cold-faced judge from hell. I would actually develop genuine feelings for a human. The next day, Zhang Shanhu's hit-and-run case went to trial. Because he was driving under the influence of illegal drugs. And the accident occurred in a school zone. The nature of the crime was extremely serious. Logically, he absolutely shouldn't receive only a 4-year suspended sentence. But Sister Zhu plans to deal with him personally. So the defendant received the lightest possible sentence. Unexpectedly, Ji Xian, who still looked unhappy. In the evening, he put down the photo with his mother. He took the rhombus-shaped device from the safe. I wonder what he's planning. On the other hand, Guamurue asked Zhu Jie when she would act. She just wants her idol to finish the task quickly. To return to hell early and forget Han Duo Wen. But this time, Zhu Jie was very cautious. To be exact, she only saw Shanhu standing next to Jin Jiaoying with a knife. And didn't see the murder. Besides, she's never killed anyone with a gun before. Yet Jin Jiaoying was shot. Jemri retorted, "Anyway, Shanhu is no good. We can get rid of him first. Then we'll see if Shanhu is the murderer." Of course, Sister Zhu wouldn't adopt her suggestion.
죽은 경찰이 한다운이랑 가까운 사이라서 더 정확하게 처리하고.
Sister Zhu didn't detect her sarcasm. She also warned Gu Mori not to touch Han Duo Wen. Sister Zhu has now solved 4 criminals. They committed 7 murders, while the serial killer murdered 13 people. If Shanhu is really the mastermind, all we need to do is eliminate him. Then Vale's 20 tasks will be accomplished. Zhu Jie could return to her old life. But she's not happy at all now. On the other hand, Council Member Zhang is very happy that his second son received a suspended sentence. He even helped Zhu Jie settle the matter of her accidentally breaking a passerby's phone. However, to quell public opinion, the director still had to suspend her for a month. Zhu Jie can use this time to research the case. During this period, her assistant discovered a problem. He specifically cut off different body parts of each victim. Different body parts of each victim. Zhu Jie immediately thought of Satan upon hearing this. Do you remember the story of Satan escaping hell? He stole Lucifer's treasure, Kalin, and escaped to the human world. He would certainly hide within a human body to avoid detection. But humans experience birth, aging, sickness, and death. Satan, hiding within their body, would also die. To avoid this situation, besides the treasure, Kalin, Satan also needs different body parts from good people. Simply put, Satan is highly likely hiding within a serial killer's body, using various murder cases to achieve his goals. While they were intensely theorizing, the overweight officer and his subordinate, Xiao Wang, didn't give up investigating Zhu Jie either. They were certain she was the arsonist. But they couldn't find any evidence. So they decided to start the investigation from scratch. After Kong Guangna was attacked last December, the police found no witnesses or surveillance footage. They only knew that the last person she contacted was Zhang Taekyu. Xiao Wang suddenly remembered a reporter named Zhao Yilan, who mainly covered Judge Kong Guangna's case. Maybe we can start with her. The next day, it was Major Crimes Unit 2's turn to present their case report. Although Paimon and Duo Wen concealed the fact that the surveillance footage was deleted, Paimon had already recovered the deleted video. Duo Wen pressed him, demanding to know what he wanted. "I'm just curious."
인간은 자신의 목적을 위해서 어디까지 아끼지.
Because a colleague came to the rooftop. Duo Wen could only let Paimon go for now. But that video is like a time bomb. Duo Wen has to solve this problem sooner or later. In the afternoon, he first followed Zhu Jie to visit the families of the victims of the serial killings, to confirm that they haven't forgiven the killer. Only then can Zhu Jie proceed with the trial. Hyo Young-suk's parents were hacked to death in 1998. Their bodies were left there for 3 days before they were discovered. Hyo Young-sik kept waiting for the day the culprit would be caught. Unfortunately, he didn't get to see it before the statute of limitations ran out. He gave up and became an alcoholic. The two of them consecutively visited several victims' families. Without exception, they were disappointed and angry. No one would forgive the murderer. At this time, the cleaning crew found Kim So-young's information. They handed a scroll to Ju Zhong. Gumu Rue takes his assistant to meet Pai Meng. The two will cooperate fully with his actions, but Gumu Rue requests that Zhu Jie must not be harmed. Only Han Duo-wen needs to be killed. Pai Meng recalls his conversation with Bali upon hearing this. To kill a human, one must first make them a criminal. Pai Meng is completely confident in this, but he won't let Zhu Jie off the hook. Pai Meng and Zhu Jie have been enemies for 400 years. They're also rivals for the successor's position of Kai Bali. The assistant is worried he'll hurt Zhu Jie.
한다운만 죽이고 돌아가신다고 약속하셨어.
악마가 한 약속.
Jemri's idea is actually quite simple. She thinks that as long as Han Duo-wen is killed, the aloof and glamorous idol will return to normal. So she warned the assistant not to interfere. Meanwhile, Zhang Taikue was negotiating with Xiao En, the landlord's daughter, about the development project. He sought her out to discuss the matter. Unexpectedly, she wasn't home. She also said that her mother had the right to deal with her own property. Zhang Taikue changed his tack. He mentioned that a murder had occurred near Huang Tian Apartments. He said that her mother's living there wasn't safe. Xiao En was indeed somewhat worried after hearing this. So I went to the apartment to see my mother the next day, to have her sign the contract. But the landlord immediately refused.
죽은 오빠가 귀신 돼서 엄마 찾아오기라도 할까봐? 아니면 내 말 듣고 사인해. 이럴 때라도 엄마.
It turns out the landlady had an older son who passed away. And because of that, she neglected her daughter for a long time, leading to a strained relationship between them. Soon after, Zhu Jie and Duo-wen came to the door. It turned out that the landlord's deceased son was Li Zan. He was also a victim of the serial killings. The room that Rujuan almost mistakenly entered that day was Li Zan's bedroom. The room still retains its appearance from when he was alive. The landlady is busy with her restaurant work every day, hoping that her two children will get into university soon. But what she got was the grim reality of Li Zan's tragic death. She was listless for a long time. She didn't even know when her youngest daughter would go to school. The landlady's soul died with her son. Until one day, she heard the church bells. And she picked up her faith again and continued living. The landlady's biggest dream was to confront the murderer, to ask him why he hurt Li Zan. Zhu Jie quickly met with all the families. She also went to see the house where Duo-wen lived. As a demon, she shouldn't have any emotions. Yet now, she feels incredibly irritated. Zhu Jie told Duo-wen, "I've seen your parents and Jin Jiaoying's files. They're all in heaven. If you want to be reunited with your family, don't do anything that will send you to hell. As for the serial killer, I will find him and kill him myself." In the evening, Zhu Jie came to the bar where Shan Hu hung out. The young assistant, pressured by Gumo Rue's power, frantically hid her phone. Unaware of this, Zhu Jie found Shan Hu and pressed him, asking if he was Satan. However, Shan Hu didn't understand at all. He even told Zhu Jie to kill him. Anyway, he has no attachment to this world anymore. Zhu Jie, hearing this, let go of his hand. Shan Hu's behavior really didn't seem like Satan's. On the other side, the assistant followed Gumo Rue's instructions. He used Zhu Jie's phone to lure Duo-wen to Paimon. But after doing all this, he started to regret it. He wanted to warn Zhu Jie, but she was still at the bar and hadn't come back. Gabriel suddenly appeared at a critical moment. The two immediately went to the bar to find Zhu Jie. The assistant suddenly knelt down and apologized. Then he told Zhu Jie Duo-wen's location. Without a word, she immediately set off. But Duo-wen had already confronted Paimon. He was naturally no match for the demon. Fortunately, Paimon couldn't casually kill humans. We can only deliberately provoke Duo-wen to make him commit a crime. Just at this critical moment, Sister Zhu finally arrived at the scene. She threw Paimon several meters away. She first made sure Duo-wen was alright. Then she unleashed all her anger on Paimon. Whether it was 400 years ago or now, Sister Zhu simply didn't take him seriously. The two of them picked up their weapons and fought a chaotic battle. Paimon was steadily losing ground, his life in danger. He had a sudden inspiration and pulled Zhu Jie into the illusion. He even transformed into Han Duo-wen's appearance. Paimon knew this human was Zhu Jie's most vulnerable weakness. Just as the sharp blade was about to pierce her body, Duo-wen's shout pulled Zhu Jie back to reality. She punched Paimon away. Then, picking up a weapon, she nailed the opponent to the wall. Zhu Jie helped Duo-wen up and prepared to leave. Unexpectedly, Paimon suddenly attacked. Duo-wen quickly stepped forward to shield Zhu Jie. Fortunately, Jemri appeared in time and intervened. Zhu Jie immediately killed Paimon. Then, she slapped Jemri twice hard across the face. She understood why he had deceived her. I also thank Gumori for wanting to protect herself. But Zhu Jie can't forgive her for trying to kill Duo-wen. So she warned Gumori to leave. Don't get any closer to Han Duo-wen. The cleaner will soon come to clean up and seal Paimon. Unless Bali intervenes, Paimon won't reappear. Moby sound. But Zhu Jie violated the prohibition and fell in love with a human. Bali can't possibly stand idly by. Fortunately, he didn't take Zhu Jie's life. Instead, he took away all her abilities, leaving Zhu Jie to atone for her sins as a human in this world. And finally, she will receive her punishment. On the other hand, Duo-wen is being investigated by the police because of Paimon's death. After all, this demon wore the skin of 7 police officers. And before dying, he met with Duo-wen. But the police haven't found any strong evidence. What does it matter if Duo-wen takes it? Next, he and Sister Zhu plan to continue investigating Zhang Shanhu to confirm if he is Satan and the murderer. But Sister Zhu has lost her magic now. She can only find another way to approach Shanhu. So the next day, she went to his door with gifts. She earnestly requested the councilman to marry his younger brother, Sean-Hu, to her. Of course, Sister Ju had to come up with a plausible reason. She said she's been feeling increasingly short of money lately. So she wants to marry into a wealthy family and become closer to Assemblyman Zhang. She hopes to enter politics this way. Assemblyman Zhang worries about Sun-Hu every day. Having someone offer themselves to take over is, of course, perfect. It couldn't be better. So, Jean Wei suggested letting the two young people date first to see how things go. Sun-Hu wouldn't dare disobey his father, but he still left the dinner table with a sullen face. Ju Jie used the excuse of going to the restroom to follow him. She ended up seeing Sean-Hu leave the secret room. She secretly memorized the location of the mechanism and then left the Zhang family. The scene shifts to the chubby police officer. He and Xiao Wang met with reporter Zhao Yaling. The latter didn't notice anything unusual about Jiang Guangna. However, a few days after her assassination attempt, the Zhang family announced the termination of the engagement. Reporter Zhao felt the two events were too close together. He had once published a report suspecting the attack was related to the family, but it was quickly rejected by his superiors. The editor also hemmed and hawed and wouldn't say more. Reporter Zhao suggested that the overweight police officer could go and check on things at Yanshan University Hospital. I heard that after Jiang Guangna was injured, she recuperated there. The police investigation revealed that Jiang Guangna was attacked on the evening of December 20th. She had visited Representative Zhang the day before. She even sent a text message to Taikyu before the incident. Xiao Wang speculated, could it be that on the 19th? Jiang Guangna went home to break off the engagement? But the two families couldn't reach an agreement, so she was still texting Taikyu before the attack. And the person surname withheld, might have been enraged, and killed Kong Guangna in a fit of rage. Of course, these are just speculations. They decided to first confirm if Zhang Taikyu had an alibi. And they also need to investigate that poison from Xian Hu. After the chubby officer calmed down, he finally ended his Cold War with Du Wan. He said, although I still suspect Kong Guangna, but at least we need to solve the outstanding assault case. Du Wan decides to assist the chubby officer, so he goes to Yonshan University Hospital to visit Professor Li Jihai, who is in charge of Kong Guangna's case. But the doctor has a responsibility to protect the patient's privacy. She can only tell Du Wan something without violating her professional ethics. She tells Du Wan that a man came to the hospital looking for Kong Guangna. Hearing this, Du Wan immediately takes out the photos of the young brothers. The professor immediately recognized Zhang Shanhu, saying it was this person. He looked very uneasy at the time. He was also wearing all black, acting suspiciously. Professor Li reported this person to the police, but the police said the investigation had been discontinued. So this lead was dropped. Professor Li's testimony increased suspicion on Shanhu. However, there's still something that doesn't make sense. If Shanhu is really the murderer, then why didn't he dismember Jiang Guangna? Ju Jie needs more concrete evidence. That day, she was about to return to her apartment, but she saw the landlady walking alone in the heavy rain. Clearly, the murderer who killed her son had reappeared. It completely broke the woman. She had just managed to muster her spirits to greet Ju Jie. She lost consciousness and fell to the ground. Ju Jie quickly carried her home. She grabbed some wet wipes and applied them to the landlord's wound. Although her movements were clumsy, she still endured her discomfort and cared for the patient. She even picked up the landlord's Bible. Since the other person had regained consciousness, Ju Jie was about to leave. But the landlord suddenly said, I've seen that hand before. That day was also a rainy day. She was afraid her son would catch a cold in the rain, so she took an umbrella to the cemetery. She saw a man in black standing in front of the grave. He was holding a white flower. The landlady immediately recognized him as Ju Shou. Without saying a word, she rushed over, grabbed him, and questioned him. But the man was much stronger than the landlady. In the end, he escaped. The landlady knew that Sister Shu was a judge. In her limited understanding, a judge was a righteous messenger who punished evildoers. So the landlady knelt before Sister Shu, crying and begging her to catch the criminal and bring this devil to justice. Sister Shu felt a mix of emotions and decided to secretly enter Zhang's house and check the secret room. But her young assistant knew she had lost her powers. If anything unexpected happened, she would lose her life. But Miss Zhu has made up her mind, because no one else can get close to the Zhang family. The next day, Miss Zhu invited the councilman to dinner at 7. The Zhang father and son saw that it was still early, so they decided to stay a little longer at the golf course. Little did they know that Miss Zhu had arrived at the villa early. The housekeeper knew she was coming, so she didn't ask any questions. Miss Zhu asked if Councilman Zhang was there. The butler truthfully replied that he and the eldest master were playing tennis. Only Suan-Hu was at home, sleeping after taking sleeping pills. Upon hearing this, Ju Jie handed the butler some bills and asked him to buy some egg tarts from the large department store. The butler looked troubled, saying that not only was the department store far away, but also that there shouldn't be nobody left at home. Ju Jie immediately assumed the posture of the mistress. I'm about to become the mistress of this house. I can totally help you take care of the housework. The housekeeper, upon hearing this, could only leave with the money. Seeing this, Ju Jie quickly went upstairs. Little did she know that Zhang Shanhu wasn't asleep at all. Instead, he was secretly observing from the second floor. Unaware, Ju Jie approached the bookcase. She triggered a mechanism, opening the secret room behind it. It was pitch black inside, without even a signal. She walked down the corridor into a large room. She found a familiar painting on the wall. Ju Jie carefully entered the bedroom. But the drawers and cabinets inside were empty. There was no useful information. However, a mother-son photo was on the table. It seemed to be Shan Hu and his mother. Ju Jie, having found nothing, was about to leave. She noticed the candle in the painting had gone out. She tentatively reached out to touch the canvas. She discovered there was actually a different space inside. She saw the door in the painting suddenly enlarge. Zhu Jie couldn't resist walking into the space in the painting. She opened the iron gate and went deeper into the secret room. And she opened the wooden box in the center of the table. Inside lay an axe with a peculiar shape. This must be one of the murderer's weapons. The motion sensor light came on as Zhu Jie approached the wall. Various body parts were displayed in the refrigerated cabinet. This scene completely ignited Zhu Jie's anger. But soon, a noise came from outside. Zhu Jie quickly closed the iron door and left the canvas. She hurriedly left the basement, but then Shan Hu suddenly attacked her. At the same time, the chubby police officer also discovered some clues. Young Sun Hu was at the scene and took a taxi the day Kong Guangna was attacked. Such obvious evidence, yet no one mentioned it. It looks like Assemblyman Young covered for his son. Du-won wanted to tell Zhu Jia this clue. But he couldn't reach her by phone. He could only contact her assistant to ask about Zhu Jia's whereabouts. He learned she had gone into danger alone. Without a word, Du-won immediately went to the Young family home. While Sister Zhu had lost her magical powers, her reaction to danger remained sharp. She snatched the baseball bat, preparing to strike Shan Hu. However, he didn't know she could hide inside paintings. In a moment of Zhu's hesitation, Shan Hu snatched the bat away and knocked her unconscious. When she woke up, she found herself tied up in her bedroom. Sister Zhu looked around. I saw scratch marks on the wooden door by the wall. She deliberately steered the conversation towards Kong Guangna. She asked Sun Ho why he tried to assassinate her. Time shifts to December of last year. While Kong Guangna was waiting for Counselor Zhang, she accidentally opened the secret room and entered the bedroom. She also noticed a camera placed in front of the television. Guangna couldn't resist playing the recording. I discovered that it was Zhang Taikyu, the video of him abusing Sun Ho's mother. So that woman had been imprisoned in this bedroom all along. That's why there were scratch marks on the wooden door. Before Guangna could finish watching the entire video, Zhang Taikyu walked in. Guangna quickly said goodbye and fled the house. But how could Taikyu possibly let her go? That day, it just so happened that Xian Hu's drug addiction acted up. Young Taikyu bribed him with a bag of flour. He made this drug addict kill Guangna. Before her death, Kong Guangna sent Taikyu a text message breaking off their engagement. That's the whole story. At this moment, Xian Hu attacked Zhu Jie to silence her. At the critical moment, Du one day arrived. Guillermo Rue also gave him a design drawing of the Zheng family villa, and told Duo Wen that Zhu Jie had lost her ability. Duo Wen was shocked upon hearing this. He immediately rushed into the mansion and broke into the basement to save her. Zheng Shanhu, that scoundrel, took the opportunity to escape. Zhu Jie stopped Duo Wen, who was about to chase after him. She explained that Zheng Shanhu was not the culprit. The real culprit should be Assemblyman Zheng or Zheng Taikue. When the father and son returned home, they only saw an ambulance and a police car parked at the entrance. With the police still there, they couldn't make a fuss. The next day, Jemery was called to the hospital. Zhu Jie forgave her previous mistake, and even let Jemery slap her twice. Unexpectedly, this guy was also impolite. She almost knocked Zhu Jie's jaw off. We've now got the Zheng family's handled. Zhu Jie, act now. She summoned Vol with blood, claiming she'd found Satan. Hearing this, Vol returned his power to Zhu Jie. He told her to capture Satan quickly. The first thing Zhu Jie did after regaining her power was to settle the score with that guy, Shanhu. When Zheng Shanhu was discovered by the police, he was already burned to a crisp in his car. The body was damaged beyond visual identification. We can only wait for the forensic results. The police found a note at the scene. It read, "My father and brother killed me." The Zheng father and son were quickly brought to the police station for questioning. Zheng Taikyu claimed he was at home on the day of the incident. However, while Zhuzhou was being held captive by Xian Hu, all the cameras in the house were turned off. Therefore, we can't confirm whether Zhang Taikyu was lying. As for Assemblyman Zhang, he put on a sorrowful appearance, saying that no matter how unsatisfactory his son was, he was a precious being to him. He's so precious to you? Both father and son are masters of evasion. We can't get anything out of them through questioning alone. According to the preliminary investigation, on the day Zhu Zhang was imprisoned, Young Taikyu met with a member of the National Assembly at the golf course. I heard they were discussing legislation related to the Wangchindong Urban Renewal Project. As for the victims' DNA test results, they will be available in 3 days. That is, the day of the funeral. 3 days will pass in the blink of an eye. Zhu Jiang specifically wore a new outfit to attend the funeral. She interrupted the feuding father and son. She said, "Don't pretend in front of me. You're clearly not sad at all. This funeral is a complete sham." But the police received the forensic report. They learned the deceased wasn't Zhang Shanhu. Instead, it was a wanted fugitive who disappeared 10 years ago. The chubby officer was about to go back to Kangwon-do to investigate the crime scene, when Zhang Shanhu suddenly appeared himself. What exactly happened in between? Let's go back 4 days. After Sister Zhu was discharged from the hospital, she went to Kangwon-do to find Sun Ho. She didn't intend to kill him. It was because Sun Ho had evidence related to the serial killings. The axe hidden in the wooden box. Sun Ho carried the evidence with him like a precious treasure. He just wanted extra safety and security. Sister Zhu told him to take the evidence to the police station and turn himself in. Confess which of the Zhang father and son is. In return, Sister Zhu will help Sun Hu's mother avenge her death. If he refuses to cooperate, he'll eventually be killed by his father or brother. But Sun Hu didn't believe Sister Zhu. She laughed, "Then let's make a bet." She told Sun Hu to contact his family first. Let's see if the assemblyman or Zhang Taekyu will save you. After Zhang Taikui received a call for help from his younger brother, he did send a few bodyguards to help. But his purpose wasn't to help Shan Hu. Instead, he wanted to kill him and steal the evidence. Luckily, Zhu Jie was foresight and sent Guillermo Rue and others to block the road. They helped Zhang Shanhu deal with those burly bodyguards. Now, even his own people have cut off his escape route. Shanhu had no choice but to cooperate with Zhu Jie. The cleaning crew has extensive resources. They obtained the body of a criminal who died 10 years ago. With a little bit of hellish black technology, they could make the body look like it died yesterday. Shanhu also wrote the suicide note as requested. Zhu Jie orchestrated this fake death incident to deceive the Zheng father and son and buy time, so that Shanhu could successfully arrive at the police station to surrender. She lit the gasoline and threw away the suicide note, leaving the scene without looking back. Speaking of which, didn't she need to put a stone on that suicide note? A gust of wind could blow it away for 2 miles. Time returns to the present. Shanhu, holding the weapon, came to the police station and was willing to accept punishment for imprisoning Zhu Jie. But he still refused to say who it was. Fortunately, the axe has been sent to the National Science Investigation Bureau. The truth will surface in 3 days. Because of Suanhu's surrender, the Huangtianding development plan has been forced to halt. People in the political circles, afraid of getting involved, are all trying to extricate themselves. Zhang Taikyu is also worried that his younger brother will reveal something he shouldn't. He instructed his men to get him out of the police station as soon as possible. But the latter reported that there was news from the Luping police station that Zhang Shanhu submitted the murder weapon when he surrendered. He said it was evidence of a serial killing. Zhang Taikui flew into a rage upon hearing this. As the saying goes, misfortune never comes singly. After the chubby police officer restored the golf course's surveillance footage, he obtained evidence of Zhang Taikui bribing a member of parliament to illegally develop the Huangtian cave. With this, they could summon Taikui for questioning. It's also worth noting that the news about Suanhu submitting the axe as evidence was actually leaked on purpose by Duo One. Because Zhu Jie wanted to use this to force Zhu Shou to show himself, Zhang Taikui didn't know he'd fallen for it, and rushed to confront Assemblyman Zhang. We're accomplices. Of course, not Taikui. Those things were done by you. Taikui seemed to have anticipated that he would get rid of him after using him. So he simply revealed an important clue. The magical artifact, Hailuan, that you dropped when you escaped hell, actually fell next to the Wangshan apartment. And I've already found 7. From the sound of it, Assemblyman Zhang is Satan. He just outsources the dirty work like murder and division of households. Everything was left to Young Taekyu to handle. Neither of them is innocent. Councilman Young, to get Kayleen back, had no choice but to follow Taekyu's orders and go to the basement to confirm whether the Yotu was still in the secret room within the painting. Sure enough, the iron table was empty. Ordinary people can't open or enter the alternate space. In other words, someone helped Sun Hu. Besides Judge Kong Guangna, no one else was at the Zhang family villa that day. So the conclusion is obvious. Kong Guangna had already been replaced by an otherworldly being. Councilman Zhang let out a nervous laugh. He opened a hidden door on one side, revealing Sun Hu's mother's desiccated body. He said, "I'll let you out soon." Zhang Taekyu heard that the axe was missing. "I'm so angry I could grind my teeth to dust." Councilman Zhang reminded him that Kong Guangna is a devil. "You don't have the ability to fight her. Hand over Kaylee now. I'll hand over all my assets and send you abroad." Zhang Taekyu wasn't willing to believe him easily. Councilman Zhang could only suggest, "Then let's exchange at the airport. Hand Kayleen over to the people I've sent. Then you can leave the country immediately." That evening, Zhu Jie used a mirror to periodically check on the Zheng father and son's movements. She unexpectedly discovered that Kaylin was hiding under the model of the Huangtian apartment. Seeing this, Zhu Jie immediately set off. Meanwhile, Assemblyman Zhang handed the prepared materials and fake passport over to Zhang Taikyu. The latter also showed the Kaylin proof to prove he wasn't lying. The reason why Zhang Taikyu wasn't afraid of Satan grabbing the treasure on the spot was because once a demon enters a human body, if the body dies, the demon inside will also be destroyed. Taikyu wouldn't fear anything that could be killed by a handgun. Poor Satan firmly believed that humans wouldn't kill their father, but was pierced by a bullet the next second. Zhang Taikyu wasn't stupid. His own father died 26 years ago. It's just a fake. Young Taekyu took Kaylin to the airport. But as soon as they got out of the car, they were stopped by several staff members. Unsurprisingly, these were probably Satan's people. Seeing that young Taekyu had no intention of handing over Kaylin, they started fighting in the airport. A beautiful flight attendant stabbed him in the thigh. A terrifying smile appeared on her face. Then the illusion disappeared. It turned out that Zhang Taikui never left the villa. He was simply under Satan's illusion. He mistakenly thought he had killed the demon and arrived at the airport. Satan didn't intend to kill Zhang Taikui, because, compared to a quick death, making him spend the rest of his life in prison was the crueler punishment. Satan happily left with Kaylin. Meanwhile, the National Forensic Science Institute sent back the test results. Besides the victim's DNA residue on the axe, there was also Taekyu's DNA. He is the serial killer. The police immediately mobilized, and Du-One also informed Zhu Zhang of the results. Unfortunately, the two fell into a misconception, thinking the killer and Satan were the same person. At this time, Zhang Taekyu, having bandaged his wounds, escaped the villa. When Zhu Jia arrived at the scene, she only saw a pool of blood. Cut to Satan, who had already reassembled the dismembered body parts. He was about to put Kaylin into the new body to achieve immortality. But the next second, Zhu Jia grabbed his wrist. Satan's true identity was finally revealed. Zhu Jie immediately summoned the Blade of Judgment. She prepared to send Satan to hell. Then, he suddenly shouted Han Duowen's name. Does Zhu Jie really not want to know how Zhang Taikui became a murderer? Zhu Jie stopped her movements upon hearing this. With Satan's narration, the events of 26 years ago surfaced. At that time, he was injured while escaping to the mortal world. He also unfortunately lost Kaylin. While wandering aimlessly, he met Zhang Taikui. When he was young, he was just an unloved, illegitimate child. Since his mother died, he's been helpless and alone. Young Taikyu finally got into Seoul National University, hoping to gain his father's approval. But Assemblyman Young still considered his birth a mistake, and told Taikyu to leave immediately, lest his wife and Sienho see him. Unexpectedly, these words completely enraged Taikyu. He picked up an ashtray and killed Assemblyman Young. When Taikui woke up, he realized he'd brewed a big pot of trouble. And Satan appeared at that moment. He saw Taikui's inner desires. He promised him wealth, power, and the status of a legitimate son. But young Taikui also had to become his knife to help Satan kill and dismember. It turned out that young Taikui was a natural-born killer. Later, their deal was discovered by Sienhu's mother. Zhang Taikui simply locked her in the main room and starved her to death. Then he continued to look for new targets. Murder was like a hunting game to him. And the happy Do-One family, blessed with loving parents, quickly caught Zhang Taikui's eye. He disguised himself as a gas worker and cruelly murdered Do-One's parents and younger brother. The story ends here. Satan can see what Zhu Jie desires most. He's tempting her. I can give you Kaylin and a new body. Don't you want to remain by Han Duowen's side forever, in human form? Wouldn't you want that? The moment he finished speaking, he pulled Zhu Jie into a hallucination, letting her experience the happiness of spending a lifetime with Dawen. Just as Zhu Jie let her guard down, Satan immediately awakened Hu Shanhu's mother. Hu felt no pain and was unusually ferocious. Fortunately, Zhu Jie quickly adjusted. She stabbed her, killing her instantly. Satan tried to take advantage of the chaos to combine with Kylan. Unexpectedly, Zhu Jie kicked him. Even facing death, Satan still wanted to remind her. Don't trust Fall, it's the devil of devils.
들렸어. 악마 중에 악마는 나야.
Satan, forced from his physical form, his soul will not immediately perish. The final battle officially begins. Although I don't understand the ranking of the demon's power here, Satan is completely outmatched by Zhu Jie. He's like a punching bag, getting tossed around. Zhu Jie summons the gates of hell and forcefully throws Kaylin through them. Seeing this, Satan rushes over to catch him. But Zhu Jie takes advantage of the moment and stabs him. His soul was sucked into the gates of hell. The police arrived late, after the fighting here was over. Zhu Jie contacted Do-One to explain that Taikui was trying to escape. He's currently at Incheon Port. Do-One secretly infiltrated the black ship to ambush Taikui. Facing the man who killed his parents and younger brother, he couldn't suppress his rage. Do-One had waited 25 years for this day. Who knew Taikui would laugh heartily at that? He said, "Why are you like that policeman with the surname Kim? You both like these cheesy lines." The man in black that Kim So-young chased that day was indeed young Sienhu. But the person who shot her and took her away was actually young Taikyu. Kim So-yang is a very capable detective. Even when captured, she quickly regained the initiative. But her mistake was that she valued the rules too much. She wasn't willing to shoot a suspect casually. She only wanted to bring Taikyu back to the station. As a result, she was ambushed by Sunho from behind. As she was dying, Kim So-yang picked up a nail. She carved young Taikyu's name into her wrist and left a letter clue. Unfortunately, Taikyu noticed her little action. His arm, the one with the tattoo, was brutally chopped off. The brutal description enraged Do-One. He picked up a nearby anchor and smashed it down on Taikui. He wrestled him to the ground. Do-One picked up a fire extinguisher, intending to beat Taikui to death. But he had promised Ju-Ja before. And he also promised Officer Kim So-young he wouldn't take a life, he wouldn't disgrace his profession as a police officer. So Do-One didn't do it. Instead, it was his colleagues who arrested Taikui. As for the owner of the smuggling boat, it was actually Gabriel, the Archangel, in disguise. Thanks to his help, Taikui didn't escape by sea early. Although Do-One lost his parents, fortunately, he met many benefactors when he grew up. Soon after, Taikui's case went to trial. Sister Zhu was about to begin the trial when suddenly Bali appeared. He, considering Sister Zhu's merit in capturing Satan, was willing to wipe the slate clean of past sins. However, Sister Zhu must release Zhang Taikui and personally execute him. Otherwise, she will be dragged to hell and face the most terrifying death. On the eve of the trial, Sean who needed to attend as a witness. But just as he was about to leave, a prisoner suddenly lunged and attacked Sean, whose neck was stabbed, bleeding. Sister Zhu received the news quickly. She could only announce that the trial would be temporarily postponed, because the witness scheduled to appear today had an accident. The first public trial will be postponed to 2 days later. It goes without saying that it must be that guy, Taikui. They sent someone to assassinate Sunhu inside the detention center. Fortunately, the toothbrush handle wasn't sharp enough. Sunhu has been sent to the hospital. The police also searched the entire Zhang family villa. They didn't find the videotape Sunhu mentioned. There's no proof that Zhang Taikyu killed his stepmother. And after Sunhu was stabbed, he backed down. He was afraid of his brother anyway. Now he's definitely too scared to testify. Zhu Jie wasn't surprised when she heard. Such a meek person is of little use. Duo 1, standing nearby, couldn't help but ask, how did you end up handling Zhang Taikui's case? Actually, Zhu Jie spoke to him beforehand. She told Zhang Taikui, I can set you free. But you must kill someone for me. Then cut off each part of the body and give it to me. Zhang Taikui thought she also wanted eternal life. He regarded Zhu Jie as a devil like Satan. So he agreed without thinking much. Besides that, Zhu Jie mentioned the videotapes. Zhang Taikui certainly wouldn't reveal the whereabouts of the tapes. But he mentioned, those are masterpieces. 714. Zhu Jie speculated that Taikui likely had 3714. His hobby was recording the entire process of his crimes. Those tapes must contain more than just Sun Ho's mother. They have to find the tapes before the trial. The first round of the trial begins in 2 days. The prosecutor's indictment against Tae-kyu primarily focuses on the murder of police officer Kim So-young. They are demanding a life sentence. Because of the serial killings 25 years ago, the statute of limitations has expired, even though Taekui's fingerprints were found on the weapon. He still denies it. His lawyer even tried to shift the blame to Sun Ho. He presented a detailed record of Sun Ho's illegal purchase of firearms and ammunition 5 years ago, accusing him of being the one who shot the victim. Of course, this record cannot be submitted as evidence. Even if the firearms were purchased under Zhang Shanhu's name, it doesn't prove he was the actual possessor. When both sides were at an impasse, 714, Zhang Shanhu surprisingly agreed to testify in court. He testified this time to avenge his mother. Zhang Shanhu admitted to helping his brother kidnap Jin Zhaoying and witnessed Taiku's entire murder, including the previous attack on the residence of Huangtian apartment. All of it was ordered by Zhang Taekyu. Of course, the defendant's lawyer wouldn't just sit idly by. He seized on the fact that Xian Hu had a history of drug use. He wanted to prove that the other party was not clear-headed and that his testimony was invalid. And he demanded that Zhang Xian Hu produce the videotape mentioned in his testimony as evidence. The first public hearing is temporarily adjourned. The police are working overtime to search Zhang Taekyu's place. Dai Swan discovered a blind spot. Inside Zhang Taekyu's Taeyuk Industrial Development Building, there's an underground 5th floor originally used as equipment room. But it was closed many years ago and not connected to the elevator. So it was missed during the previous search. When the police searched again, they found a secret room. It's not only luxuriously decorated, but it also has a safe. Inside are videos of the victims of 7 serial murders, including footage of the Duo Wen family's murder. The details are too gruesome even for Zhu Jie to watch. The police immediately submitted the videotapes. However, this is evidence outside the statute of limitations. It's irrelevant to this trial, even if it proves that Zhang Taikui lied in court. But the police didn't guarantee the defendant's right to participate when obtaining that evidence. There was a procedural flaw. Therefore, Exhibit 7142 is inadmissible as evidence. Young Tae-kyu is indeed a cold-blooded murderer. He even admitted to being a serial killer. But the statute of limitations has passed, so he can't be held accountable, as long as Tae-kyu doesn't admit to killing Kim So-young. If the police or the prosecutor can't produce evidence, then the charges against him won't stand. Young Tae-kyu showed no remorse whatsoever to the bereaved families present.
우리도 당신들이 나한테 고마워해야지. 당신들의 소중한 가족을 해방시켜줬으니.
The angry bereaved families wanted to kill him. And Du-won, as the first person to discover the scene of Kim So-young's death, testified in court. He also revealed, I am the sole surviving witness to the serial murders. The witness's current statement is completely irrelevant to this case. Defense attorney, if you interrupt me again, I will have you removed from the court. Duo-won continued his statement with Judge Zhu's tacit approval. Then, that reckless lawyer dared to interrupt again. Judge Zhu immediately had him removed from the courtroom. At this point, Duo-won pleaded with the court to seek justice for the victims. The law hasn't abandoned the people. Zhu Jie is now in a dilemma. If she convicts Tae-kyu, she'll die. But releasing him would be a betrayal of the victims and their families. It would be rubbing salt in Du-won's wounds. Jiamri and the others see Zhu Jie's hesitation. They kneel and beg her not to act rashly. Just release Tae-kyu and then kill him. Then I can safely return to hell and be a good judge. And if Han Du-won finds out that you were annihilated because of him, that would be a great hurt. But Zhu Jia has made up her mind. She won't let Du-won know about Bale's threat. On the day of the third trial, the landlord's daughter came to the scene with a big belly. Sister Zhu looked at the judge's oath on the wall. She composed herself and came to the courtroom. The defendant, Zhang Taikui, shot the victim, Jin Zhaoying, and then killed her. He cruelly mutilated her body. The eyewitness testimony of Zhang Shanhu is consistent. Furthermore, the defendant's fingerprints were found on the murder weapon. In light of the above, it can be confirmed that Zhang Taikui is guilty. The 23 unsolved murders from 25 years ago. Although the statute of limitations has expired, the victims' families jointly submitted a petition demanding severe punishment for the criminal. Considering all factors, Zhu Jia finally made a choice she could live with. Her reputation was finally cleared. Duo Wen took her to visit her parents and Officer Jin. Meanwhile, Zhang Shanhu was sentenced to 15 years in prison. The end. Before he got on the prisoner transport van, he desperately slipped a note to Zhu Jie and said, "The safe in my room." Meanwhile, the court president, in a fit of what I don't know, was actually moved by Zhu Jie's final judgment and proactively revealed the matter of the congressman interfering with the trial. After the president delivered a heartfelt declaration, he spectacularly resigned.
법원장님은 앞으로 뭐 먹고 사실게요?
유튜브 하려고? 전직 판사가 알려주는 법률 상식 티켓.
At the same time, the landlady still went to the prison. She wanted to personally ask Zhang Taekyu why he killed his own young son. Zhang Taekyu showed a disdainful expression upon hearing this. He had been raised by his mother since childhood, living in a poor and dilapidated rented room. He had suffered humiliation for half his life, so he despised people more than anything. He told the landlady, "You killed your son. You had no money yet you still had a child. Otherwise, your son wouldn't be living in the Huangtiang cave, and wouldn't have met me in that alley." Do you know what your son said before he died? He begged me to spare his life, saying his mother would be heartbroken otherwise. Zhang Taikui's sudden smile. I told the boy, your mother won't be heartbroken. She'll only be happy to be rid of one less burden. Hearing this, the landlady completely broke down. The prison guard quickly came over and took her away. After returning home, the landlady received the items Zhu Jie had given her. These were things Zhang Shanhu had picked up when her son was murdered. It was a birthday present. Inside was a letter the little boy had written to his mother before he was killed, and a bottle of women's hand cream. Although it was many years too late, but this birthday present still reached Mom. However, bad guys don't usually die easily. That day, Zhang Xianhu suddenly committed suicide in a hospital ward. Upon learning this, Zhang Taekyu immediately applied for special leave. He wanted to take this opportunity to escape prison. Meanwhile, Zhuzhou was about to face Bale's judgment. Before leaving, she specifically went to say goodbye to Du-Wen. They agreed to see each other again tomorrow. But after Du-Wen returned home, he was restless. He felt that Sister Zhu's behavior that day was unusual. A bad premonition overwhelmed him. He rushed to find Sister Zhu. But when Du-Wen arrived at the scene, it was already too late. Although Sister Zhu was rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment, her heart had stopped and she had lost all vital signs. The doctor stood by the bed and announced the time of death. Du-Wen walked over and stayed by Zhu Jie's side. A tear fell from his eye onto her cheek. The next second, Zhu Jie actually woke up. It turned out that after her physical death, her soul temporarily returned to hell. Baal opened a door, allowing her to proceed to eternal death on her own. Unexpectedly, Gabriel actually followed her to hell, saying that God would show mercy to the good and the pitiful. Sister Zhu's judgment of Taikyu comforted countless grieving people. So God gave Sister Zhu life again. But Gabriel died from the physical strain of saving her. Du-Wen hadn't even processed the joy of Sister Zhu's awakening when he received a call that Taikyu had escaped. He slipped away using his brother's funeral as a cover. He's currently meeting with a lawyer under a bridge. The lawyer brought 7 fake passports and US dollars as instructed. Unexpectedly, Zhang Taikue killed the lawyer after getting what he wanted. He killed the lawyer as soon as he got the documents. But then, someone suddenly called the lawyer. They said there was a problem with the fake passport and it needed to be remade. Zhang Taikue had to change his plans and wait another day. Little did he know, that phone call was a trap set by Zhu Jie. She wanted to kill Taikue herself. Du-Wen wouldn't interfere with his lover's choice. But as a police officer, he will also fully investigate this case. Whether he'll be retrieved by the police, or die at the hands of the devil, depends on Taikue's luck. He doesn't know what he's thinking right now. He actually drove back to his villa. Zhu Jie had anticipated this. She's standing on the 2nd floor, reading Takeaway. The latter, furious, rushed over, clutching a stone to throw. But Zhu Jie pushed him down with one hand. Zhang Taikue's arrogance bordered on stupidity. He actually thought he could beat a demon. Zhu Jie stepped forward and pulled him into an illusion. She said Zhang Taikue had killed 14 people up to that point. If she let him die simply, it would be letting the murderer off too easily. Sister Zhu stood behind, shooting arrows relentlessly. She wanted Takeaway to deeply experience the feeling of death hot on his heels. In the blink of an eye, young Takeaway was hit by several arrows. He struggled to continue running, only to step on a bear trap. Sister Zhu caught up and pinned him to a tree trunk. But the game wasn't over yet. When Zhang Taikue woke up, he found himself in hell. Zhu Jie had someone bring Assemblyman Zhang up, and she untied him. Outsiders shouldn't interfere in the family matters between father and son. After Zhu Jie finished speaking, she threw out 2 swords, letting them settle things themselves. The Jing father and son picked up their weapons, one after the other. A truly filial piety scene. Zhang Taikue initially thought killing an old man would be a piece of cake, but he quickly discovered that his father had transformed in the blink of an eye into something satanic. He was naturally no match for Satan. He was quickly cornered. His head was separated from his body. Zhang Taikue hadn't yet recovered from the terror of being decapitated. We arrived at the house where Du-Wen lived as a child. A family photo of 4 people still hangs on the wall. Seeing Zhuja, he immediately rushed forward with scissors. But the next second, his wrist was severed. You cut off the left wrists, shoulders, and ankles of Han Du-Wen's family 7 times, while they were still alive. Zhuja cannot forgive him for harming Du-Wen's family. I intend to let Takeaway experience the feeling of being beaten to a pulp. The continuous torture is meant to make young Takeaway beg for mercy. Hearing this, Sister Zhu told him to change into prison garb. She beat young Takeaway mercilessly, breaking both his legs. He was beaten until there wasn't an inch of his body left unscathed. Young Taekue, barely able to stand, kowtowed and apologized. But he doesn't understand that apologizing is the sinner's duty. But forgiveness is not the victim's duty. Not every apology can wash away sins and allow one to start anew. Especially Taeku's apology, which is worthless. It's just a means for him to survive. Jujo wields the blade of judgment and sends him to hell. There, he will receive punishment for eternity. When the police arrived at the scene, they only saw Zhang Taikue hanging in the courtyard, with 14 coffins neatly arranged in front of him. Each coffin was inscribed with the name of a victim. Although the lost lives cannot be recovered, at least the perpetrator can no longer continue to live. Afterwards, everyone went to Grandma Angel's funeral. Since the task is complete, Sister Zhu should also return to hell with Bali. She earned herself a 3-year vacation, hoping to spend some quality time with Duo Wen.
난 앞으로 우리가 만든 추억으로 영겁을 세우려.
Unexpectedly, Sister Zhu was demoted to Xiangyang to serve as a judge because of her biased final judgment. She was assigned to Xiangyang to work as a judge. She handles petty cases every day. And she stayed there for 2 years. Duo Wen would visit her whenever he had time. To be honest, they both had a pretty rough time. Only 3 years left. And they have to be separated because of work. But Zhu Jie really doesn't want to give up her career as a judge. Duo Wen respects her decision. Neither of them would give up their convictions for love. Fortunately, Zhu Jie performed exceptionally well. Finally, she was able to transfer back to the Seoul Central Court in her last year. During this time, the victims who were saved by Zhu Jie or Duo Wen have gradually overcome their trauma and returned to normal life. Zhu Jie felt very comforted watching them. As for the little assistant, it's even more incredible. He's now neither a Christian nor a Buddhist. He doesn't believe in either. He strikes the temple bell every day. The area around Huangtian apartment has also been completely transformed. It's become a cozy residential area. The landlady's house is filled with photos of her daughter's family. It seems they've reconciled. The single mother opened a small restaurant. She often gives free meals to her neighbors. Everyone is striving for a better life. Returning to the central court, Zhu Jie felt a lot of emotion. But her happiness didn't last long. I saw piles of case files. The former dean did exactly as he said. He went to YouTube and created a self-made legal education program. That day, Zhu Jie was working overtime. But Ball suddenly appeared and relayed Lucifer's proposal. He said that as long as, within the year of the F-sting, Zhu Jie could kill 10 criminals and send them to hell, she could live as a human. Bali urged Zhu Jie to consider carefully. This is, of course, a great opportunity. But Zhu Jie was very distressed. If she were to personally kill the criminal, she would have to give a lenient sentence at trial. This would inevitably cause harm to the victim and their family. She simply couldn't overcome her conscience. She also felt that doing so would be unworthy of a judge. Duo Wen knows that Zhu Jie has already made up her mind. So Daoyan, no matter what choice you make, I will support you. As for what decision Zhu Jie will ultimately make, the film doesn't give a definite answer. Therefore, this season ends with an open ending. Park Shin-hye, the queen of Korean dramas, returns after marriage. The main selling point is, of course, the female judges fighting fire with fire. The portrayal of the criminals in several unit cases really makes you want to punch them through the screen. It fully engages the viewer's emotions. There's also subtle satire of the law. The script itself doesn't have any major problems. Probably the biggest turnoff is the male lead. The character design of a man upholding principles and adhering to his police beliefs is fine. But the actor's acting and appearance don't match Park Shin-hye's. This resulted in zero chemistry between the leads. The CP's romance should have been a plus point, guiding the evil judge to understand that beyond the law, there's the important anchor of human feelings. But because the male lead was a poor choice, it made it impossible to empathize with the judge's downfall. A decline in aesthetics is truly a global problem.